Yeah, I know. I'm getting there. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Christians Talking About Shit. This time, the roles are reversed. I'm going to be talking with Amos. As you can see, Amos, how's it going?
Good. Long time no see.
Bro, it's been a while. It's been a minute since we've been in the same room doing this. About a month and a half for our listeners. We haven't been in the studio for a while.
March
Amos,
7th. March 7th.
March 7th, what?
That was the last one we did.
Oh, the last episode we did?
Yeah, that we recorded.
This is not starting out
Sorry.
the way I wanted it to, Amos. I'm in control. I'm in the control chair. No, just kidding. However, we haven't been in the studio. We haven't been back in this same room. You've been traveling. You've been going around doing some work, doing some jobs.
A little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to take us a little while to kind of grease those wheels, kind of get back into the rhythm of it all.
Maybe.
No?
I don't know. I feel about the same every time.
Do you?
Yeah.
You just don't feel one way or the other about it? I mean,
No.
come on.
No, I mean, I feel the same going into every single podcast, and then I feel more or less the same coming out of every single podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
There's not some that you're like, just like, oh.
I'm generally pretty like pumped afterwards. Like
Yeah.
that went well. Like, because then all the stress is off of like, are we going to do a good show? Am I going to have good questions? Are we going to have a good conversation?
Right.
And all that's gone. And I'm like, hey, we actually did have a good conversation. We did it.
Yeah.
And then, so then all the stress is off.
Yeah.
I enjoy having done things.
What I need you to do is just to loosen up a little bit. Loosen up. Drop the shoulders down a little bit, right? Right? You're not in control. Who knows what could happen? There might be some hijinks. There might be special guests. We don't know.
As long as my name goes on the podcast header this time.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll make sure to let our production team know that, right? But yeah, so Amos, how long have we known each other now?
August of last year?
August of last year. That's a pretty recent development with regards to both of our lives and kind of jumping in to this whole scene and doing all this, right?
Mm-hmm. When did you start going to Mosaic?
We've been going to Mosaic. Wait a minute. This isn't my podcast. When did you go to Mosaic?
We started in 2021. So it was my mom's church. I think she was going since 2017, pretty much the beginning. And then when we started staying around NAC more, and it was right when they moved into the Oak Grove building, we started going there.
22?
21.
21? Okay.
May of 21.
Okay, yeah. We've probably been going around 4 years.
So we were just ignoring each other the whole time.
Maybe.
Sounds like it.
Well, it's more about once you get founded, in a church body, and you get more involved, and you start volunteering as you should be. Everybody get out there and volunteer, right? I think at that point, then you have time to breathe and actually form relationships.
I think the beard scared me off. I was like,
oh,
that guy looks like a Viking over there. I'm gonna avoid that dude.
No.
Well, it's because I can't grow one, so I'm like, it's intimidating.
Well, don't be intimidated. I hope, if anything, feel easy, if you will. Does it feel weird sitting on that side, though?
A little strange.
Yeah,
it's a little on the other. See how the other half lives.
Do you not know? Does it feel a little unnerving? Just like,
I'm curious where we're going.
Yeah, where the whole thing's going.
I am generally used to being in control of things, and might be a hang up that I have. It's a good thing I'm married to someone who's like doesn't need to be in control.
Loosey goosey.
She does she don't care. She's just like, where are we going? What are we doing? Tell me.
Have you ever been kicked off of the go-karts?
I've never you pay for?
Yeah, like you're going too crazy.
No, because I've never been to a go-kart. And I've never done that. No.
Never.
Although we had one when I was a kid, and it was this little thing with a single single piston engine on back.
Okay. How many cc's?
And I would ride, I have no idea, 25, 50.
Okay.
It was small. It was like a lawnmower engine.
Single rider.
Yes. So I would ride that thing around the yard. And it's actually still out at the property there. I thought about taking it out and fixing it up for the kids.
Yeah, why not?
Anyway, I would ride this thing around the yard, and we had trailer houses. And one time I didn't quite turn sharp enough, and I drove that thing straight into the trailer house. And it's like this high off the ground, and the trailer house is also this high off the ground.
Did you go right under?
So no, I got saved by the steering wheel. It was like I just went bam. I was probably doing 10 miles an hour, maybe 15, straight into the side of the trailer, and it caught on the steering wheel, and I just like, it could have been the end of me. I don't know. Like it could have. I don't think it would have cut me in half, but it would have hurt.
Have you had near death experiences like that before? I mean, outside of the go-karting incident?
Not in exciting ways.
No. I just remember one time when I was a child, I almost drowned, and I'm sure my parents probably didn't equate it to me almost dying, but for me, I felt like, I almost died.
I rode a tricycle down a hill when I was 3, like a really steep hill, and
Okay.
I still have the. There's a cut right there.
Were you guys
between my
daredevils?
fingers. No. I've always been very risk averse.
Okay. Because your kids are quite daredevilish.
Some of them.
Yeah. The boys at
Now
least.
the oldest, he was extremely risk averse when he was young.
Okay.
But I still wouldn't say he's like really risky now.
No, not too crazy.
The middle boy
but
though, he's kind of crazy.
Yeah. He'll definitely climb up on those monkey bars.
None
and
of
jump
them
from
are
the
like
top.
free bleeders. Like we had a term when we were
Explain.
kids where like there's always the kid who's constantly bleeding.
Oh, okay.
We don't have one of those.
Oh, gotcha. Nobody with just always banged up coming through. Do you ever name your car?
No.
Never?
No.
Oh,
I don't tend to name inanimate objects.
Really?
Like
Just out of fun?
I guess like if I had a sword,
Okay.
would I name it?
Okay.
If we were in medieval times or this was D&D, would I name it? I don't know. It still seems kind of
Rosie.
pretentious.
I don't know. Would it be a male sword or a female sword name? When you think of a sword, do you think of more masculine or feminine?
Masculine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Putting
It's for killing things.
putting old Buck back in the sheath.
It's also kind of phallic. So like, why would you name it? Give it a female name.
You'd have to ask a knight in shining armor, I guess.
There aren't any around left to ask. I don't think they really named their swords back then too, unless it was for show or
Oh,
like if you had one of those giant swords that were just ceremonial swords.
I bet you they were all naming their swords. As soon as they heard King Arthur's were naming all theirs, yeah, they were all naming theirs.
Excalibur is not like a name like you'd name a pet though. It's more like it's still like a name for a thing. A name for a thing. Whereas like if you name your sword Bob, it's like, what's going on there?
Well, yeah, the local peasant that was picking up his sword to go fight every time the freaking king demanded. I'm sure he had a pretty bland name.
Hey, no weaponry has names in the Bible, does it? Maybe there could be maybe Jesus' sword. I'd have to actually look that. That'd be an interesting study. I don't think any person had a name weapon or a weapon named.
Lord of the Rings, another one that kind of stands out.
That's different though.
Yeah, but it's still in the same realm.
That's like
of,
an exception.
just because it's a plot. What's moving the plot?
They're elves. Elves get to name things, I guess.
What's your bumper sticker situation?
None.
Do you like bumper stickers?
Don't even think about them. I don't tend to, that's the other thing is I don't tend to display things. I like to keep people guessing. One time I had a salesman tell me, like, you are really hard to read. I don't understand what you want or how to get at you. And I'm like, I was raised by a pastor/salesman
Right.
who sold Bibles and other things. So it's like you learn to bullshit detector is pretty high.
Right.
And then I just don't like to let people know what I'm thinking.
Okay. Ever own a snake?
Not one that I bought at the store.
Always wild snakes?
Yeah.
What are we talking? What kind of what
I mean, garter snakes. We caught a lot of garter snakes up in Minnesota. Here, you'd maybe catch a green snake, or you'd catch a rat snake, chicken snake.
They're keeping them.
Not for long periods of time.
Okay, so not an aquarium.
A week or two,
situation.
feed them some bugs, let them go. We'd catch lizards a lot more than snakes. They're more common.
Gotcha. Nah, you couldn't catch me with a snake, man.
No?
No, when y'all came over to the house and your kiddos found that little bitty guy,
That freaking you out?
it wasn't freaking me out, but it's like, nah, I don't need it in my life. Like I just, I've gotten to the point where it's like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. The only good snake is a dead snake kind of deal, you know?
They eat rats. They're a valuable part of the ecosystem. Yeah, if you grew up with my dad, he's like, don't touch that snake. That's what Satan was.
Ooh.
Yeah. Serpent in the garden. Like, oh, stay away from that thing. And I'm like, it's a little superstitious. Like, did all snakes have legs before the fall? I don't know. Don't think so.
Oh, so he taught you guys that it was the actual physical snake.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yes. Interesting. The older I get, the more I seem to get away from the actual literal animal that it was a snake. And,
I think it could have been manifested as a snake.
Okay. Yeah.
I see no reason why it wasn't literally shown, or not, but why he didn't like take the form of a serpent. Do I think that he was always a serpent? No. I just would think he took that form. But then he, like, you're cursed to slither on the ground, and I don't know. There's some interesting things going on there.
Yeah. I mean, allegorically, it could be interpreted to be something else with regards to slithering on the ground and roaming the earth. You ever fallen through the ice?
No.
Because you guys get a bunch of ice up there.
Like, not in that setting. Like, I've walked on ice on shallow water on very thin ice and broken through, and then,
Right. I'm talking like.
No.
Okay.
No, I've never gone through deep ice, deep water.
Ice fishing?
I have not been ice fishing.
No. See, I would think that would be like a mainstay living up there up north.
It is.
Yeah, you just never.
I didn't fish and hunt, so.
Interesting. No hunting either.
Not really, no.
Just chopping wood and.
I always found it easier
farming.
to just go get a cow, or someone would give us the deer.
I mean, none of your family friends hunted?
Yeah, they all hunted, yeah.
Oh, you just weren't interested in going?
I just getting up at 5 a.m. and sitting in a stand that's 20 degrees.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm not really, guys at church will be talking about hunting and guns and stuff. And I'm like, I have guns. I know what I have, but I'm not really that avid. I've got a brother-in-law that he'll talk your ear off about guns. And
I mean, I get it. Like, I used to, as a kid, I was big into like the idea of hunting. And as I've gotten older, it's just never been something that. Now my oldest, he does want to go, and maybe I'll have to get into it for that. But then we have to go do hunter safety and all that stuff. And it's like, And I think Texas, I technically have to as well, because I was born after 71. Everyone born after 71 in Texas has to take hunter safety.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you have 6 hours or whatever it is to throw away?
I took it when I was probably like, I don't know when the first age it is that you can actually take it with your dad, and maybe 14. I remember taking it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just went through the course, and I'm sure it's on record somewhere. I don't have a copy of it or anything.
Yeah.
Not
that I'm discounting the idea of hunter safety. I'm big on all firearm safety and hunting safety. It's just more like I've been around that my entire life.
Right.
And so like most everything in the class is going to be rote for me. Now, yeah, my oldest, he needs to go through that process.
Yeah, because you're not actively using and utilizing and hunting and taking him with you. So yeah, I would say that's where.
I mean, we've gone over firearm safety and stuff like that, but it's one of those things where it's not been ingrained. And even like the course isn't going to ingrain it, because it's only, like I said, 6 to 10 hours. So that's not long enough to make a habit out of anything. Just to teach you some things to avoid. Head knowledge, not heart knowledge.
Did you guys ever do fireworks?
Yes. Oh, well, I take that. We've done it later, because like Dad would never buy fireworks. So it would be if other people bought fireworks, or we went to a fireworks show or something. But actually going out and spending
money,
$200, which today I think is like, let's go blow up some money.
Yeah. But there's some people that are really, really hardcore into it. Like 4th of July comes around, New Year's comes around, and they're breaking the bank.
We go watch those people.
Yeah, for real.
We'll go over to their house.
It's a lot. So with that next question, I guess you never cross state lines to go buy fireworks. 'Cause that's the thing. Because in Texas,
Technically, yes.
in Texas, they only sell it.
So we do have a
Twice a year.
picture when my oldest was 3 months old. We were headed from Minnesota to Arkansas for Feast.
Okay.
And we stopped at a big fireworks place in Missouri and bought one of those. It was a black cat roll that was this wide around and this tall. It's like giant one. And so we lit that off for like celebration of our firstborn child.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that was
Okay.
about $170 for a giant.
Jeez.
10 years ago.
Back in the day too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those tariffs hadn't hit yet.
No, they haven't. They had not. This next question, obviously, I probably know the answer, but with your big family, there's no telling. Does anybody in your family have a flame tattoo?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Like extended or close?
Maybe.
I'm sure I know some of the extendeds have some like Jesus fish tattoos.
On fire. Jesus fish on fire.
I don't think that analogy works.
I mean, I've seen it on a bumper sticker for sure.
Jesus fish on fire?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that like
for sure?
good fire or bad fire?
Yeah.
Because I would take that as like Jesus in
Like
hell.
some Gen Z lingo. That's fire. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? All the metallic decals, that are not necessarily bumper stickers, but are just, you know what I'm saying?
I said, we said what I feel about bumper stickers. So.
Yeah. I'm sure there's
You have a lot of bumper stickers, but those seem to be all like places we've traveled.
Is it a bumper sticker if it's not on the bumper?
Yes.
No.
Wherever you put it on the car makes it a bumper sticker.
No. If it's on this, listen.
It's a statement.
With the Forerunner community, if you're putting it on the glass, I feel like that's not necessarily a bumper sticker versus just
how close to the bumper does it need to be?
I mean,
like what if it's on the tailgate?
I've been thinking about putting it on the top rack. Does that count?
You couldn't read that.
I'm not trying to tell
I think
anybody
bumper
to read
stickers
it.
are bumper stickers anywhere you put them on a car.
Hence the name bumper.
Yeah, we can agree to disagree on that one.
That's okay. You ever decorate anything with bottle caps?
No.
No? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I've thought about like it'd be cool to build a structure out of bottles, like recycled bottles.
Glass?
And do some upcycling. Yeah.
How would you adhere the glass bottles
Cement.
to each other?
You stack them and then you lay cement in like mortar.
Okay.
So you basically use the glass bottles as your bricks.
Yeah. I think a lot of times
And then it's also your window.
Those bio buildings out in Arizona that are like fully, recyclable rainwater and wastewater, and they're like dome shaped, and I'm talking about like earth domes. I think they use a lot of recycled glass in that
There's
manner.
hay houses too, which are kind of cool.
Okay.
So you make like your installation's hay, and then you wattle and daub, or you maybe
What?
not wattle and daub, but
What?
wattle and daub. It's a type of house that they made in England where they would it was used, I think, with weaved wood, and then they would put
Wattle and daub.
I don't know the exact building materials, but the look has a kind of a timber frame look because it'll have like large column structures, and that are exposed, and then they'll run the weaving and then the plaster in between. I'm getting a lot of that wrong, but I know what it looks like, and I
Interesting.
kind of have an idea on the building tactics. But
Did
I answer your bottle cap question at all?
I mean, future aspirations for sure. Ever been run over by a car? Never.
No.
Ever been in a car accident?
Yes.
Bad?
No.
Okay.
Any more details on that?
No. How about any homes that have green or red carpeting?
Yes.
Yeah. We kind of
growing
talked
up.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Growing up, my mom was big into like forest green. So all the trim was green and the carpet was green. And it took a long time to convince Dad to tear out that carpet and throw it away.
Really?
Yep.
Were there hot?
And his sons were flooring guys, and it still took us forever to like, hey, we'll lay it for you. Like,
What'd you put on top?
well,
You tore it out.
just like a beige frisee.
Oh, just a different carpet.
Yeah, we put in more carpet, but it
Gotcha.
was not 20
Do you
years
like
old.
carpet?
No.
No, I can't stand carpet.
As a carpet guy, as a flooring guy, I can't stand carpet. I've taken out carpet that was more dirt than carpet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just disintegrates.
And actually, the worst thing you can do is clean your carpet frequently.
Why? Because it breaks down the fibers?
Yeah, especially if it's wet cleaning. It damages the carpet over time substantially. And the people who had the most dirt under their carpet were always little old ladies who vacuumed all the time. The more you vacuumed more frequently, the more sand there was under your pad on the concrete.
Yeah, that makes sense. You ever eat your candy? That doesn't really apply because it says you ever eat your candy as you were trick-or-treating. I can't imagine you were ever trick-or-treating.
I don't think I've ever trick-or-treated in my life.
Ever. Like
No.
not even like in a
well, we didn't do
rebellious
the whole
phase?
trunk or treat thing. No, I didn't have a rebellious phase.
Whoa. Wait. Okay, are you living in your rebellious phase right now? Maybe
Define
that's what
rebellious.
Is. Maybe that's what this podcast is this whole time.
Is it to get to the bottom of Amos'
Maybe this is what this is this whole time. This is your rebellious phase.
We might need to get out the whiskey then.
How come you, what hold up. Circle back. You've never been in a rebellious phase.
Define rebellious.
I mean, just I guess blatantly against your parents, even as a young teen.
No, I'm a goody two shoes.
Goody two shoes.
I mean, I've disagreed with my parents, but okay. So they got divorced when I was 14.
Okay.
So it kind of like I didn't have a chance to like get into that rebellious phase. Maybe that's what happened. And then I stayed with dad, and I was taking care of him because he had some health stuff. He went on an 84-day fast.
Right.
So I was taking care of him while he was on an 84-day water fast. And that probably, I guess, maybe matures you a little bit. And so like I really never had a need to like. Now I did like I would go see movies in the theaters. That would be that my dad might have considered that rebellion.
Yeah, I would consider that rebellion.
Okay.
Yeah. I think definitely. Yeah, if you're going against what your
but he wouldn't like explicitly say no to me doing that. He would just be like, "Yeah, you don't need to be doing that." But there was never an express command, except for maybe going and seeing Return of the King. When that came out, that one he told us not to go see it.
And you saw it anyway.
I saw it anyway.
Oh, rebellion.
That's about as probably rebellious as it got.
No drinking. Drinking underage.
He never told me not to do that.
Oh, okay. No.
Although he was a teetotaler, but he never like expressly ordered me not to drink alcohol.
I don't think parents necessarily would express.
Yeah, but it was never in a like. Again, it wasn't at house parties. I was thinking about that on the way over here. It's like, are house parties immoral, or like the idea of partying? Because within the realms of like not doing anything that is laid out as sin, but just like that party lifestyle, is clubbing a sin? I don't know. Something I was thinking about.
You're chasing debauchery.
Are you though? What if you're just dancing? What if you're just dancing, but it's not Christian music?
No. I'm saying, but you're going. Listen, as a married man after.
What if you're going with your wife?
16 years. No, even then, married people aren't chasing that stuff, and if they are, they're chasing something else. You know what I mean? So I would say,
what, like they're swinging?
Well, no, well maybe, but I'm saying like as a young teenager, when we would go to the clubs, we were just going to either find chicks or get drunk. You know what I mean? You're chasing.
If that's your goal, what I'm saying is, what if that's not your goal? What if you just like to dance?
I think they're lying to themselves.
You think so?
Yeah, if that's why they're. Oh no, I don't. I just go to the clubs just to. I love the environment.
I mean,
I
can't imagine.
I love all the smoke in the air.
See, like I hate that environment. Although it's a cool environment to film in because there's lots of light and ambiance and haze and smoke and all the fun, cool stuff that makes film look good. Which, when they like film club scenes too, there's actually no music or sound. It's just a bunch of people waving around in the background. And yeah. So your actors can talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I went into a club in Denmark.
Recently?
Yeah. And it was, I needed to use the restroom. So like someone we were walking around the downtown area looking for something to do after we'd been filming. And mind you, I'm with Christian people. Like we're all pretty moral. I'd say highly moral, pretty moral. So we're not like seeking out those things, but we did pass by. Someone invited us into a club. I had to go to the bathroom, and it was just this little dingy one room with a glass door out, with people just kind of like dancing to techno. Yeah, and then some tap beer.
Hey, Amos,
in a single bathroom, and it was just
come
like
take a drink, Amos.
I was like, this does not encourage me to want to go clubbing at all.
Yeah, no. I think
that's the closest I've been to a nightclub.
Was that club in Amsterdam?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I guess literally, but like, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, that answers no rebellious streak, I guess. Although, if we dig deep enough, there's definitely something.
There were probably areas where I did things where I'm like, my parents might not approve of this, but it's like, you're not talking drugs, or if alcohol, it wasn't much alcohol, and it was in like extremely controlled environments, like a friend's house with their parents type of thing. Not outing any parents here or anything, but statute of limitations is probably passed on that. But also there's no drunk, not getting drunk. Like I definitely didn't get drunk until I was after 20 at some point, 21.
I can't say that most people can say the same. Have you or anybody you know ever hired a private investigator?
I thought you were going to say an assassin or something. No.
No?
Not that I'm aware of. We're too cheap for that. We'd go do it ourselves. We're like, I'm not going to pay someone to do that. I'm going to sit in this truck all night myself and watch that house.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Not that I know anyone who's done that either, but but yes, that would be the Elseth way.
Okay. Do it yourself.
Yeah, we'll do it ourselves.
Would you say, I don't want to call you cheap, but frugal for sure?
Frugal's, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like very frugal.
Yeah. Why? I don't want to use the word wise, but I would say we're pretty wise with our money. But yeah, frugal. Wise would be probably more investing in more growth and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever ridden a bike while holding another bike?
No. Maybe. I wouldn't. No, I don't think so. I don't know why I would do that. Did I steal the other bike?
Maybe. I mean,
then that wouldn't fit the rebellious streak.
No, it would not.
You know, on the stealing thing too. Like one time when we were at, I was probably 10, and the neighbor kid stole some gum from Walmart.
Okay.
And I had a large moral issue with that, and much debated as to whether we're going to take this. No, we didn't rat him out because I'm not a snitch. But there was much debate as, do we take this gum back to Walmart? What do we do? And I think we ended up throwing it down a sewer drain. Yeah.
Rather than partake in the sin, just.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Okay. I would assume like this question would be more like if you're riding around town. Did you guys ride bikes around town as
we
youngsters?
Rode it on like the blacktop, like because when we lived when we were kids, we were out in the country, and there was like 4 miles of blacktop road, so we would just kind of go back through there, and it was a poor neighborhood, but we'd go with my mom.
Well, you had mentioned trailers.
Well, we had trailers.
Oh, okay.
Dad liked trailer houses because they were cheap forms of storage, so we had like 7 of them. And then the neighbors thought a cult was moving in.
Hoarders much?
Yeah, that's a valid word.
Okay. No, I mean.
Hoarders is very valid.
Yeah.
Inability to throw things away that might potentially be useful.
Yeah. Do you think it's just a matter that probably goes hand in hand with frugality?
Yeah, well, and I think it's like Dad was raised by someone who grew up in the Depression. And so he was like, don't throw anything away because it might be useful. And then Dad's like, don't throw anything away because it might be useful, or it could be sold. It might be valuable to someone. You know, this printer that NASA used back in the 70s was $30,000 back then. So therefore, it must be in the Bible Museum.
Well, and
that's an aside, but yeah.
Yeah, but how about when you move? That's got to be quite a headache.
You don't move.
You just don't move?
You just don't move.
Okay. Well.
And then when the person dies, you dig a giant hole and then put them at the bottom and shove all the other stuff on top.
All their material possessions to follow them into the next afterlife. Oh, gosh.
It's kind of like Pharaoh, but it's like a mountain of junk instead of gold and silver.
Did your family ever prescribe soda as a medicine, such as ginger ale, Sprite for an upset stomach?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we weren't big soda drinkers, so it would be occasional.
Like tummy aches and...
Although my mom did at one point before they got divorced, there was a mountain of 7-Up cases out in the one shed. Like I swear it was like a pallet load.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Somebody got a deal.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I just remember there being a mountain of them. We'd go out and we would sneak sodas from there.
Oh, rebellious.
Maybe that's
Rebellion
the rebellious
again.
sneak. Yeah. Sneaking sodas from the stockpile. But yes, like, yeah, if you had an upset stomach, I'd drink a ginger ale.
Anyone in your family ever claimed to have seen a UFO?
Yes.
You personally?
No, my dad.
He's claimed to see a UFO?
He was going through the mountains somewhere out west, and he said a light, this was probably back in the 70s.
Oh.
A light came over the road. They were driving at night. Light came over the road, stopped over the top of the road, and I believe moved on.
In front of him?
Yeah, in front of him. That's what I recall from that story.
And immediately, there was no hesitation in sharing that story?
No, he's never been like, no, Dad, he doesn't hesitate in sharing those kinds of stories. He saw like a lumbering wolf man cross the road in Minnesota about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his wife was with him and she saw it too. So they saw something. Could have been one of those dire wolves that they just made.
Could have been.
Could have been.
Yeah.
But they hadn't made those yet. But it could have been a big gray wolf or something. They have wolves up there. But he said it was bipedal and lumbering.
Any collections that were supposed to be an investment, such as like Beanie Babies?
No.
No.
No Pokemon cards, no Beanie Babies, no baseball cards. Baseball cards might have been a good thing to...
I remember collecting them as a child, but at a certain age, I think we moved and
The thing is
lost.
To get as many as you can and then keep them in good condition. And then when you get those rookie cards and those people become massively famous, then those cards are worth something.
Brush your teeth in the shower?
Yes. In the shower? Oh, I thought it was brush your teeth and shower. Yes,
No.
Both. I do not brush my teeth in the shower.
What do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
If I needed to save time, maybe. Like it didn't even occur to me. The idea of brushing your...
Pee in the shower?
We're not going to go there.
Okay. All right. Check in next time for taboo topics, huh?
I should do taboo topics with Terrell.
Taboo topics with Terrell.
See? Great hook.
I think I know the answer to this one. You would consider Die Hard a Christmas movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because it's fun to call it a Christmas movie.
Ever gotten into a physical fist fight?
Very briefly with my brother when I was younger, and I somehow got on top of him, and my brother's 6'5".
Really?
Yeah, so he's like 5 inches taller than I am now. At the time...
Well, because your mother's quite tall.
Yeah. So at the time, I don't know, he was a lot bigger than I am. I wasn't as big as I am now. And somehow I got on top of him and I was like pummeling him. And then I realized that I was on top of him. I realized that I was on top of him, pummeling him, and then I promptly got off and ran away because I knew that he was about to clobber me. Yeah.
Clobbering time.
Other than that, I've always avoided those situations. Again, I stayed away from clubs and bars. So like, nobody who wants to fight me. What have I done?
Ever own a George Foreman grill?
My dad owned quite a few of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
More than
he
one?
was big into George Foreman grills.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, he liked cooking burgers on those.
Interesting. Just set it and let it go.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I cooked a lot of those when I was a kid because that's what we had.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely on the trashier side.
We were in a trailer house.
That is so funny. Did you play any sports growing up?
Not only recreationally.
Because you guys were
never
homeschooled.
organized. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of volleyball at like Bible camp, or I still enjoy volleyball. Volleyball is a a great sport. I haven't gotten to this pickleball craze.
Pickleball's fun.
Never played it.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to pick up. It's a smaller court. It's pretty fun. Probably need to play more. That's for sure. Ever own a Snuggie?
No.
No.
No, I didn't. I didn't need a blanket.
Did you guys watch a lot of TV growing up?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I define a lot.
Well, no, I mean, with regards to Snuggie, that was really big on TV, as seen on TV, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when Walmart started carrying that stuff.
But we're talking like mid 2000s, late.
Presumably, I don't know.
Yeah, we're not talking about 90s.
No, but I mean,
did you ever have a slap chop?
The ninja slap chop thing?
Like chop it and cut it, yeah.
No, the craziest thing we ever got into was like there's a Christian music sign up catalog thing where you could, you sign up and get 20 for the price of 5 CDs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And then that was about as crazy as we got with regards to like succumbing to advertising. But we didn't really have any TV. We were really hardcore going to the library.
We went to the library. No, we always had a dish connection or yeah, since like 96, Dad always had a satellite. So and then he was a lifetime subscriber to Sky Angel. So there was a lot of like TD Jakes and Jesse Duplantis and Kenneth Copeland, John Hagee. There's a lot of those guys playing. So
does he still listen to those guys? Although some of them might be.
I think he's gone more down the YouTube rabbit hole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Flat Earth?
We're not gonna go in there.
Save that one for taboo.
Yeah. I have my opinions.
You have your opinions. Ooh. You didn't see that recent thing where that pastor took out like six YouTubers that were pro, 6 YouTubers that were against, and kind of vetted them and were like, all right, these are decent guys, and took them out to Antarctica to witness a 24-hour.
And how did that go?
Oh, the sun didn't go down.
Yeah, that's what happens in the north or the south.
Yeah, because the earth is round. All right, I'm glad we accomplished that. Do you consider American cheese to be cheese?
No. Definitely not cheese.
I think we're going to disagree on this one.
I don't even think they're legally allowed to say cheese on the product.
It's just all the extra cheese.
It's a dairy slice.
It's all the extra cheeses. They just jam it into a machine and squirt out little squares.
So it's like the chicken nuggets of cheese.
Yeah. You don't like American cheese?
No, I mean, I might eat it if you're in a pinch and you get a McDouble from McDonald's, which is about as much as I'll do. I might go to Whataburger. Has pretty good burgers. Like theirs are pretty the ingredients seem.
But even then, at Whataburger, you're getting pepper jack. Who are we kidding?
You don't have to get cheese on it. What's wrong with pepper jack? That's a real cheese.
No, I'm saying if I have the option for pepper jack, I'm going for pepper jack. Yeah, exactly.
It's dog food. The American cheese is for dogs.
Ever pronounce the word saw like Saul?
No. Saul, did you saw that? You saw that piece of wood over there?
No. Yeah, I think we're definitely at the end of my little list here.
Are we?
Yeah.
It seems like how long has this list been? Jeez. It's a 30-minute list.
Hey.
Yeah.
You gotta keep those
So did you discover anything that you didn't know? Were you expecting more?
No. Not by any means. But I think it's also an intriguing device. I mean, probably next episode I'll have another round of questions.
For the guest?
For you.
For me. For the next one of these.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Until we just boil it all the way down.
So what was your goal? What did you want to find out?
Nothing. There was no goal there. No. It was merely just a matter of, not necessarily breaking any ice, but just kind of, getting us out of the routine, right? Of just sitting here having an interview versus just sitting down.
The last few haven't been so interviewee.
No, they haven't. No, Mark was actually less interviewee and more just a chit chat around a table.
Yeah, that's what my wife said.
It was kind of nice.
She's like, this was a really nice conversation.
Yeah. And I think that's where we want this to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of more just low key chit chat, talking about shit.
What you want to chit chat about?
Seeing
as you're running the show.
Yeah. No. I
don't let me take over.
I think at this point, there's no necessarily anybody driving the bus. We're just kind of careening down
toward
the cliff, and we're just gonna get our hands off the wheel. Now
that I said I was into controlling things before, and I do like to, not go off.
Keep it tight.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about tight. Like we'll go 3 hours if we want to, but yeah. Keep it safe.
What was watching any good movies lately?
Good? Define good. Like mind-blowing?
What is a go-to, I don't know, a feel-good show, a feel-good movie that Amos goes home and is like, had a rough day. I haven't seen this in a while. I'm going to pop this on.
I don't tend to watch movies twice.
Ever.
I mean, I wouldn't say never. Like we'll revisit movies from our childhood, but as far as a loop, now I did used to, there were movies that I'd watch over and over again when I was a kid or a teenager, but now, yeah, it takes it's got to be a really...
No go-to shows?
I don't have time, man. Like it's a time factor. And I wish we could block out more time. The other thing too is I don't like watching things alone. So because my wife, right now we have 5 kids. I mean, hopefully we'll keep having 5 kids unless more added. But we just, you get around to it's 8 o'clock. The kids got to be in bed. If we're watching something, it jacks with their bedtime. And we haven't gotten to that phase. Maybe we're just not strict enough to send them to bed and we sit there and watch something ourselves. And then also I want to watch movies that are,
not appropriate for children.
Yeah,
not appropriate for all your kids.
Exactly. Well, probably not appropriate for any of them at times. But so we just, we don't end up, right now we're working our way through Band of Brothers. We've been, it's 10 episodes and it's taken us about 3 months. 4 months and we're on episode 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting close. I haven't seen that one in a while.
Yeah. But as far as what have I watched? I don't think, I've watched through The Office. I watched through Parks and Rec. Go back to and watch again.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So The Office, Parks and Rec, multiple views? Or one?
I might have seen The Office twice.
Okay.
But not all the way through.
I probably couldn't even count how many times I've seen The Office.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, even just white noise if we're cleaning up the house or something.
Yeah, and see, one, if we do that, I know that I'm not going to pay any attention to it and not really get anything. I'd rather have a podcast in my ear. And then I know also that my wife, if anything is on, she'll just stop and stare at it. Even the kids programming, she'll just stop and stare at it, and I'll be like,
distracting.
Yeah, and she's cooking supper, or she's trying to clean the house, and I'll walk in and she's like,
honey, the chicken's burning.
And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I got caught in it again.
Oh yeah. Gotcha. No. See, so when me and my wife were first getting together, I had all the Star Treks on DVD. Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager.
Those glasses are legit.
What do you?
You're a nerd.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Although I think I fall more into the geek category than nerd.
What's the difference?
I wish we had somebody to look up facts.
Nerds are, I think, obsessed. Well, no. Geeks are knowledgeable, nerds are obsessive.
I like that definition.
Yeah. So a geek is less insulting.
Yeah, but I could tell you a lot about those episodes of Star Trek.
That's why you're a nerd. Because you're obsessive.
But I'm very knowledgeable about it too.
You can be bold. Nerds obviously can be both.
So yeah, we would just back to back just throw in another disc.
Yeah, see, I can't when I'm once I've experienced that thing, I don't have a strong desire to return back to it.
So
yeah,
one,
it's like,
one repeatable for us that have found coming back to year after year. Have you ever seen Arrested Development?
I did watch that twice, but about 10 years apart.
Yeah, okay. Like we probably cycle through every 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, like but what's so interesting about that show in general is that I really find that the writing is so in depth and just builds every episode on. I mean, there's so much nuance in every episode that you don't pick up on jokes this go around,
Yeah.
and then very, very
There's
smartly
a lot of
written.
depth in the writing that didn't exist in the later 2 seasons.
No,
Do you count the later 2 seasons?
I mean I watch them. But I will say they kept the storyline with regards to George Michael having the internal metronome with the
Fake block.
fake block at the last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did kind of like that. What's his name? Opie.
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard kind of weaved himself into that story and is kind of a meta take on, those later seasons. It was a meta inside of a meta.
Mhm.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the meta stuff, I think it's dying out now. It was getting a little old where everything was being self-referential.
Unless you take out like Deadpool.
That joke only works. And Deadpool's getting old. Like, no offense. I know someone who's in Deadpool 3. I was like, kind of like, this is dragging. This is getting a little old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know whether that's because it was the third one and we've seen this 3 times, or whether if I went back and watched the first one, would it feel old as well? I don't think so. Because when you go back and rewatch the stuff and you're like, okay, have I just gotten older, or have shows gotten worse, or have games gotten worse? Oftentimes you do find that you go back and go back to the stuff that you'd loved before, and you find that no, it's the times have changed. I still like this piece of content.
Yeah.
This piece of content is still good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not to say good stuff can't come out today, but I think that, man, there's something about films from the 90s where the writing was really tight. They'd have through the 70s and 80s, they had established a very strong structure for how you write a movie and how you achieve a character arc. And then in the 2000s to the teens, they just started really screwing with that structure and abandoning it. And that's a lot of what made movies from the 90s really work. Like, you pick Home Alone, Jurassic Park, any of that kind of stuff. Lethal Weapon, all those movies, like they really follow a strong story archetype. I mean, I said Jurassic Park, but Jurassic Park has no character really with an arc, except for maybe Hammond.
The T-Rex.
Yeah, he had a strong arc.
Super strong.
He was a very different dinosaur at the end of the movie than he was at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some might say he was a hero.
One movie that I did rewatch multiple times was Cloud Atlas. Which, yeah, I know. I know. I totally get that response and reasoning, but there was something fascinating about the editing in that movie. The editing was phenomenally put together in that movie.
Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah. I mean, he played multiple parts.
Yeah, because weren't they like incarnated?
So they were
incarnated
the book,
of each other.
I did go back and read the book. The book, I believe, was following one character getting reincarnated across 6 timelines from like a ship in the 1800s that I think was transporting slaves. I could be wrong about that, but it was a ship in the 1800s all the way to like a post-apocalyptic period in Hawaii, like 500 years in the future. So it went from like the 1800s to the 70s, the next one. No, the 1800s, the 30s, the 70s, modern day, which would have been 2000 to 2010, somewhere in there, depending on the book or the movie. And then there was one at like, I forget. There were 6 timelines. I've gone through 4. Yeah. Then there was one in that was like in a era when everything was fabricated and artificial, and AI had taken over, and you had lots of robots and artificial people. And then one that was after a post-apocalyptic period where they're all language has evolved a lot, and they're like this tribe living on an island, and there's cannibals, and
Never read the book. Didn't think too highly of the movie.
the editing just fascinated me. Something about how the stories were put together.
Is that another one by Scientology?
No, that was Wachowski's.
Mm.
So when they were brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the, yeah.
Not the Wachowski sisters.
Right.
Yeah.
What a world we live in. Yeah, no. Tom Hanks. Back to Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
New movie out. Think it came out late last year, called Here.
Yeah.
You seen that one?
Yes. So Zemeckis. So Zemeckis is more the driving force. He likes to play with technology a lot. So like he did so he did Back to the Future. That's where he popped off. Then he did Forrest Gump. And then he started toying with technology with Polar Express.
Okay.
And then the Beowulf movie, where he was doing like the fully animated dead eyes characters, goofy looking, back before animation could really handle it.
All right. We didn't have quantum computing back then.
Yeah. I don't think we have it yet necessarily either.
Some say we do.
So yeah, he likes to play with stuff like that. So the movie here, it's all shot from one angle. Yeah. So it goes, from like dinosaur time, but at the very beginning barely shows that, up through colonial times where Benjamin Franklin lived across the street. But the main focus is Tom Hanks growing up in this house from like the 50s up to the aughts, getting married, parents getting older. It was interesting. Like I thought it was a good concept. It was captivating enough.
I thought it was a good concept.
I don't know how you could do anything more with it.
No.
I don't feel like the concept was undersold.
The weaving of the stories, the little pictures throughout.
Finding a way to transition from one phase to the next, they did a good job.
At the very end with the mirror, or rather, they had the mirror throughout it. They had the mirror in the living room that you saw into the dining room and the kitchen area, right?
I didn't notice.
So because you're always kind of in the back of your head, you're speculating on what does the rest of this house look like.
I was watching it on an airplane, so I had a screen like this.
Okay,
so like I didn't notice the mirror.
Oh yeah, on one scene there's a big full length mirror, and you can see into the other rooms, right? But then at the very end of the movie, not to spoil it, it pans out and you see the rest of the house.
Yeah, don't spoil the movie.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't seen it by now, sorry.
They all die in the end.
Yeah. Everybody dies in the end.
Everybody.
Everybody dies in the end.
So is it a movie I'd revisit now? Like,
no.
I don't know how you could make a
but
really
I would recommend it.
No, I am curious how it was made. I would like to go look at the behind the scenes and see how they actually shot it.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of movie magic into making everything flow seamlessly, even just beyond like animation.
Right.
They were doing a lot to.
I didn't like
perspective is such.
I didn't like the anti-aging Tom Hanks.
Anti-aging?
Well, yeah. When he was younger, he's a young teenager.
Anti-aged Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
See, again, I was watching on a plain screen, so that's probably the best format to view it in because, like, I couldn't. He looked like old Tom Hanks or young Tom Hanks, I should say.
From Big.
Yeah. So it's like, it looks normal, fine to me. But the 720 screen.
True.
Yeah. We weren't first class, though.
Have you ever flown first class?
I have not flown first class. I have only ever flown economy.
I got to fly first class once, and it was all right.
How was it?
It was all right.
Where were you flying to and from?
I believe it was on a trek back from Asia one time.
So it was international.
Yeah.
That would probably be a nice time to be in first class.
Yeah. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was me and my brother solo flying.
Huh.
And that's the reason we got bumped up, is because we were younger minors flying.
Got to keep an eye on those minors. Rebellious minors.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Not my brother so much, but yeah. I probably definitely gave off that energy.
We got to keep an eye on this one. We can't have him at the back of the plane.
Yeah. But little did they know I was going to sit right there anyway.
Yeah. 10 hours in economy is like, it gets a little old. But then I've done 30 hours on a bus. So.
Ever been on a sleeper bus? Do you
Sleeper
know?
bus where you had beds?
Mhm.
No, we had to sit up the whole time.
Yeah, we were in Asia and we went down to some little village in a sleeper bus.
You know, I look forward to when we do have self-driving cars and you can just get in. As much as I'm against, I mean, I say against, but like, I don't want robots taking over the world. Spoiler alert. But being able to get into a car at 8 o'clock at night, lay down, punch your destination. Well, punch your destination first, then lay down, go to sleep, wake up at your destination. That sounds nice.
Hot take. Hot take.
I don't think it's that hot.
I'd like to have the option for both.
You do have the option for, like, what do you mean the option for both?
Well, when we're in this future that you speak of,
I think I would like to still be able to drive.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying we can't drive. I'm just saying that when you can,
I just think inevitably, once it gets to that point, they're not going to want
when
to have both.
it's safer for robots to drive than people. I mean, that's a strong argument. Like when cars can all run in unison. Now, if they have a bunch of people they want to kill off, then they just run in unison off a cliff. But that's yet to be seen.
Check your voter registration and then veer off.
That's the problem. Is like how much privacy and autonomy will you maintain when everything is? I mean, how much do we have right now with our phones? I was editing a video for a police department, and it was going into a case where they had done a Google keyword search to determine who had done this crime. You know, people got murdered, people died, and so they were trying to find who the murderers were, and they did a keyword search for an address. Basically, what it was this was back in like 2020. They had never done this before, and they did a keyword search. Well, go back on the story. They went to Google and with a warrant asking for a keyword search to look at everyone who had searched this address over this time period. And so they only came back with a small number of people, and they were able to narrow that down to their suspects. But going over basically how broad the case was and the potential for like other cases where they can get warrants to like search everyone who's like looked up this Starbucks or searched this word or something like that. It was super broad and kind of scary, like how far it reached as far as just digging into other people's information and like losing privacy, and then like being able then to like go download all the information from these people's phones once they had the suspects, and it was clear that they could get further warrants, and in order to dig deeper, they were able to just like download their cloud accounts and have literally everything on their phone without them knowing. And I mean, I guarantee you Samsung would do the same thing for them.
Yeah.
So
what legislation came into effect that
well, it did go to the Supreme Court, and
so people fought back?
Yeah, the suspects fought back, took it to the Supreme Court. They ended up getting.
How did they even know?
Well, because they arrested them, and
this is the guilty party.
Yes. So you find everything in discovery, and you know everything that's happening in the case.
Gotcha.
So they took it to the Supreme Court, and it was the state Supreme Court, and they determined that it was a good standing warrant done in good faith. And it was a very narrow search, but it was more like everything that's on your phone, they can download and get if they want to. Google, Samsung, Android, like Apple, they have everything on all your devices.
Yeah. Backed up and ready to go.
Yeah. And then will it ever be gotten rid of? Probably not. It's probably all hidden on the server somewhere. So again, it kind of goes back to that, like, do you put bumper stickers on? Like your phone is kind of like a bumper sticker. Everything you do on that thing is displayed for someone to see if they want to.
What if in the future,
they're listening right now?
Of course. What if in the future you're able to pull our kids are able to pull our phone's data and view it?
Like they inherited it? Like you inherited your parents and your grandparents' search history?
Yeah.
Could be very scarring.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on how rebellious your parents were.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I don't know. How'd we get on this subject? Did you see Heretic? You saw Heretic, right?
Yes. However, I wasn't probably in the best state of mind to fully talk about it. I remember the movie. But like you had brought it up before and you were like, oh, it's not that deep. And I was like, oh, I thought it was kind of deep.
I found it shallow.
You found it shallow.
Yeah.
So tell me why you thought it was shallow.
So Heretic is two Mormon girls who are out proselytizing, go to a guy's house who's played by Hugh Grant because he requested more information about the church. And then he leads them through a series of mind games and turns into a horror movie. And he keeps them like trapped in the house. They went over like a number of like philosophical arguments, and like his angle was atheism, and that do we spoiler alert this thing? I guess we kind of need to.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie. The premise at the end was the greatest religion for him was control. All religion was about controlling people and leading people down paths and getting them to do the things you want them to do. But his arguments against Christianity early on and Judaism, Islam, all of them, that they're all iterations of the same religion. And then also the argument that, you had all these other gods, peoples that were predating Jesus who are like born of a virgin, and all these similar analogies. And they've been, I haven't fully looked into it, but like largely like debunked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say fully debunked without looking into it myself. Like I'm sure like there's archetypes that go through history, and the idea of a virgin birth isn't necessarily a novel one.
I think he referenced an Egyptian myth.
Yeah. It was Osiris or something. Yeah. But just because Osiris was a bird or whatever that she referenced in the movie, like doesn't make a difference. So I felt like the movie, it did a decent job of giving both sides arguments in its own way. It wasn't fully disrespectful of religion, and it kind of ended on a note of like, oh, maybe.
But I think if you're already signing up for a horror movie down that lane,
I would just ask for like some deeper, more honest arguments that actually got to. Nobody changed. That's going back to arcs. Nobody changed across the course of the movie. The girls didn't change.
At the end, she rejected.
She saw a butterfly.
I thought at the end
rejected
she
what?
rejected. I don't know.
She didn't change her mind about anything.
Listen, it was hard to root for the main character when their fundamentals being Mormonism, I didn't believe in to begin with. So it was like, I don't know.
I'm curious. I'm curious why they chose Mormonism rather than Catholicism or just Protestantism. Like, I don't know why they picked, because the Mormons proselytize a lot. Why didn't they pick JWs? I don't know.
Well,
not a lot of people know what the JWs believe.
Nor are they sticking out like a sore thumb.
Sore thumb?
With regard,
Mormons are more popular. Mormons are more known.
No, I'm saying if you drive through any Middletown, America, you're going to see the classic Mormon.
I don't see
missionaries.
Where am I going to?
Really?
No, we've seen way more JWs personally.
Oh,
who like Jehovah's Witnesses will show up at your house and like, can we talk to you about?
Oh, our experience has always been with Mormons.
I don't think we've ever had Mormons.
Really? Okay, maybe you don't know what to look for.
And see, in my family and my wife's family, it's a mistake to knock on their door. It's kind of like the Heretic movie, except for they're like, we're gonna come in and like, oh yeah, let's talk about Jesus. Let's talk about
oh yeah,
let's talk about religion. Let's do it. And like those people are like 30, 40 minutes in, they're like, we got to get out of here. Got to get out of this place.
I'd be the same way. My wife, completely the opposite, would be like, don't even answer the door. I'd be like, no, come on in. Let's talk. But yeah, usually I think the typical would be like the white shirt with the black tie, slacks, Mormon missionaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they have a name tag too.
Probably.
Brother, I've seen a lot more in my traveling days versus JW. I would think that JWs don't have such a strict, they probably do dress more strictly, but not as a out of plain clothes look to them. You know what I mean? That's just been my take. I don't know.
Anyway, back to the movie. I could have asked for like a deeper arguments and also more shifts in the characters' viewpoints.
Think about writing it from just like boil the movie all
If
the way
I
down.
was writing the movie,
and you're like, okay, it's this guy that has this maze in his house. How is he going to get somebody to come into his house, right? Who are the type of people that are, does he order a pizza? Does he order, you know what I mean? And so, let's take a religious angle to it as well. Well, now we've got to, how are they going to, you know what I mean?
it just seems like an immense amount of effort without it being like fetishistic or like he's getting his rocks off, like which maybe he was. I don't know. It didn't seem serial killers and people will hold people captive for long periods of time like that. There's more going on there. It's not just a philosophical argument they're after. And so I felt like the characters were shallow because, again, nobody changed across the course of the movie, really. And deeper things weren't revealed about them as to really degrade their original concept. Well, how do I put that? Like his original motivation never changed. It was always the same across the course of the movie. So if you're going to have a flat art character like that for him, you do need to alter our perspective on him over time, and his motivations need to shift. Or not his motivations, but our understanding of his motivations need to change.
Yeah, we were suspect of him from the moment they walked in.
Yes, but also like the religious angle was still always the angle. True. It was never anything other than that. And that's where I mean, like nothing was revealed new.
You didn't like the twist with the chick that died and then...
I just figured there was an answer. I'm like, there's an answer here somewhere. It wasn't the Sixth Sense.
No, they weren't dead all along.
No. And
spoiler alert.
Pretty hard to overcome that kind of twist because unless it's like, there's only two movies that ever really got me like that. And that was The Sixth Sense and Frailty. Do you ever see Frailty?
No, but talking about The Sixth Sense, I heard a comedian talking on a podcast the other day about like The Sixth Sense with regards to the time that it came out. What, late 90s? 98? Yeah. And they were like, yeah, that was the only movie that you could, for men, you could believe that his wife wasn't really talking to him the whole time.
Yeah, you could. It was like that's what solidified the movie was he was out having dates with his wife.
Right.
And she was upset because he was dead. And he was like, she's upset because I'm working all the time and I'm not there.
So it's completely believable.
Yeah, 100%.
How sad is that?
But it was a great twist. But no, Frailty. If you haven't seen Frailty.
I haven't seen Frailty.
You know anything about it?
No. Heard of it? Horror?
So it's Bill Paxton and Matthew McConaughey, and Powers Booth. And it's the recounting from Matthew McConaughey's point of view of his brother, who was a demon hunter, who was raised by his father, Bill Paxton, who was raising them to hunt demons.
So supernatural.
So it's going like from present day of Matthew McConaughey recounting this story to in the past where Bill Paxton and his kids are hunting down, but it's not like overblown, overly like, it was what year? 2003, 2002, something like that. So it's not a ton of CGI, and it's just a really good like thriller / mystery.
Frailty.
You will like that one.
Well, that reminds me of the show Supernatural.
See, I didn't watch Supernatural. I know there's a lot of memes and.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it.
It's from what I gather, it's rather soap opera-y.
Oh,
like it's supernatural soap opera.
Yeah, and if you know anything about me, I'm a sucker for soap operas.
Really? Like your Days of Our Lives?
No. My wife calls them boy soap operas.
Okay.
This is recalling back to Star Trek. I mean, that's a sci-fi soap opera.
It's not a soap opera. It's all about science and overcoming and moral quandaries. Soap operas are not about moral quandaries.
You don't think Star Trek is a soap opera?
No.
I am a die-hard Trekkie, and I would admit that it's a soap opera.
No, because it's not hung up in the characters and the characters' lives and the friction and conflict between the characters. That's what makes it a soap opera. So Game of Thrones is a soap opera. Yellowstone is definitely a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about this interpersonal connection and friction, and like there's nothing high concept about it. And Star Trek is way too high concept to be a soap opera.
Okay.
And I say this as a non-Trekkie, like it's not.
Okay.
I don't think it's a soap opera.
Well, I think a lot of Trekkies out there will probably thank you for going to bat for them.
You know, gotta do it somehow.
Some Trekkies.
Jesus loves Trekkies too.
Have you ever gone to a Comic-Con convention or anything like that?
No.
No anime convention, no movie convention.
No waifu conventions.
Any film festivals?
I've gone to a couple film festivals.
Yeah, what's that like?
It depends on the size, I guess. Like I've gone to the NAC one here a couple times.
Okay.
They're fun. Like it's not as like maybe there's probably more networking that happens at a bigger one.
Right.
I went to a Christian Worldview Film Festival. Yeah, so I went to that one. That was a bigger one. That was cool because, and no offense, the movies all sucked because they were Christian movies. No offense. Yes,
no,
maybe some.
You're not wrong.
Maybe some. Well, I'm not to you. Maybe the listeners. Maybe some of them are listening right now. The problem. Well, we've talked about Christian filmmaking before, where it's very agenda driven, very propaganda driven, and story always comes last.
Yeah.
And
until
at any rate,
recently,
it was nice going because but being around a lot of like-minded filmmakers who are Christian, and the work ethic and character is there for a lot of them. That was cool. So that was a 2 or 3 day convention. I recommend that one. It's nice. It's fun to,
Can anybody just go?
You got to pay. I mean, there's a cost to get in.
Oh.
But otherwise, yeah, anyone can go. If you have money.
Would you say you're more frugal or less frugal than your parents?
Less frugal. In a way that I think, when we define frugal, I think that you can be wiser with your money while spending it. Meaning like, there's you have to spend money to make money, for one thing. You're doing business. And then also I think it's important to spend money on certain experiences. Rather than just sitting at home and doing nothing because it costs money, which we still do sometimes these days.
Yeah.
It depends on yeah.
I'm all about the experience. Yeah. Spend money to have the experience, not necessarily material.
No, no. And then that's the other thing with like the eBay business. Like I've had so much material flow through my hands that was like gear related that I'm like, ooh, cool. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, it's another piece of gear, whatever. How can I use it?
Right.
So just like what cameras and lenses do I need to run and do what I'm doing? And there are still certain things like, ooh, I might use that someday.
Hang on to it.
Yeah. Hang on to it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's interesting though, that you essentially, I mean, you make your living now, buying and selling gear on eBay, electronic gear, film gear specifically,
film and audio gear.
Yeah. But at one point you were like, oh, you had a passion for like wanting to get the latest thing or whatever.
Yeah. So like when you're a gearhead, I'm definitely a gearhead. Like, getting your hands on the newest thing and, ooh, this thing's going to either make me better or make me be able to do better work. And that's obviously a fallacy. I mean, it's a poor craftsman what blames his tools. So, a good filmmaker can take a potato and make a good looking image and movie out of it. And a bad filmmaker can take the most expensive camera in the world and make something that looks terrible.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's how you know how to use it, your knowledge base and how to use it, and also experience and skills. But at a certain point, like having more gear, it's just another thing that you have to have in a closet or take care of. Or if you're not going to use it, what's the point?
What is the point, man? What's the point?
I don't know. That's a good question, this Christian. What is the point?
What is the point?
What's the meaning of life? 42?
That was a great movie. Never read the book.
Serious. I read the first one.
Yeah, I never read the book. Wasn't really much of a reader after like Lord of the Rings.
You stopped at Lord of the Rings. So it's like a tome this thick, and I'm going to stop there.
I feel like
I got enough reading in.
Yeah.
Or was it that like what 30 pages about a tree at the beginning that did you in?
No. No, it was going down that path, reading all three of the Lord of the Rings and then The Hobbit, and then thinking, "Oh, I could get into this," and then buying all the extended books that J.R.R. Tolkien and his son wrote, right? And then having them just sit on the shelf for years and years and years and be like, "Yeah, I didn't really want to buy all that." I never read it.
Well, like the expanded stuff, Silmarillion, and
Yeah.
That's deep. And that's the other thing about, say, Lord of the Rings. Is like there's so much lore. Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all of them. There's so much lore that's built up in these things. It's like years and years of people's lives were used to create these fictional universes that at the end of the day are meaningless.
Are they? Are they though? I mean,
I guess it depends on there's only two things that you can derive from art, really, in my opinion. I'm spitballing this take because I haven't even thought about it, but now I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
The two things that you derive from art are either entertainment or moral meaning that you use to be a more moral person. So like take a movie that has a strong moral message. You're like, you watch it, you're like, oh, that character was wrong in the end. I shouldn't live a life like that character. This is where tragedies are powerful because you say, I'm not going to take the same path and life choices that Macbeth did. I'm not going to murder kings in their sleep or whatever happened in Macbeth. I actually haven't read Macbeth or seen any movies on it. However, my point is that like you either use entertainment to just pass the time and be entertained or to gain moral messages. And that's true for, I think, most all art. Like what more can be gained from it?
Cryptic messages.
Well, then that's, I guess, applicable to the real world. But then that means like some deep conspiracy where the author was sending allegories and messages about the real world. I mean, unless you believe like the whole Middle Earth conspiracy that like this is true history of an ancient time that's been forgotten before the Younger Dryas impact theory. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely take that as well, but I think I haven't really thought about it either with regards to creating art and having such a bipolar stance on this and that, whether it's for entertainment or for morality's sake. But I would say that,
and I'm not saying entertainment's bad.
No, I know. But I'm saying
it can
that
be wasteful.
As human beings, as special of a species as we are, one of a kind, there's not another thing like us. There has to be something to the creative side and creating, right? That is built inside of almost all of us.
Yeah.
Right. And so with that being said, I think, we have a God that is very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't think that God creates based on purely those two figures.
Yeah, but that's different because that's like physical, actual creation. That's like saying that like the guy who created the automobile or invented something practical and useful.
There's no reason why God had to make a sunset so beautiful. You know what I mean?
Sure. Unless the sunset is beautiful just because we perceive it that way, because it's an interplay of light in the atmosphere and like. Well, did God invent the sun to be beautiful because we haven't? Did he invent the atmosphere so the sunset would be beautiful?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean,
chicken or the egg? Which one came first? My grandma used to say that God's favorite color was yellow. And she would use, I think it was yellow, and she would use the example of like a field of flowers, right? Oh, okay. Look, that's God's favorite color.
Why was that God's favorite color?
And then me and my family were talking about it, and we were like, Well, I think really, if you really look at creation, I think God's favorite color would be green. Would be the predominant, most
I
colorful.
believe it says Jesus' body is beryl.
Beryl?
It's a green. Somewhere in the prophets, I believe.
His body is green?
Something like beryl.
Please,
I have to
please.
see where that is. Yeah.
Where? What?
Well,
What are you saying? What are you saying right now? His body was green?
not on this earth. More like his spiritual.
As in his spiritual body?
Yeah, he wasn't like a green alien walking around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. I don't know.
I have to find
I don't know where you were going with that.
reserved for my childhood that he had a body of beryl.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
King James translation.
Right.
Yeah.
1611.
Yeah, probably.
Save that one from
same.
Save that one for another episode.
But I think that, there's an argument to say that like God created, therefore it's good for us to create too, because we create beautiful things. And the best thing you can, like, it is one of the most human things to do is to create and innovate and make beautiful things.
Yeah.
And things that are purely utilitarian tend to be soulless. But it's still nice to know like the practical use of something. I don't like utterly useless things. And I say this as a storyteller.
But I think that's your perception, though, is that you're defining it as completely useless, whereas someone else's perception could be like, no, that's very useless. Because I could go over to your dad's house with those 7 trailers full of junk and be like, it's completely useless.
Well, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Right.
So that's where I say, like, if a story conveys a moral message, and most all good storytelling, well, I say all good storytelling conveys a moral message. That's going back to like the archetypes from the 90s. Every story had to have a theme. It had to have some kind of wrong or right that it was telling across this, a lesson that you learned across the story.
Yeah, I think as a generation, as a society, we've strayed away from morality.
Yeah, because our stories, but in part because our stories have been straying away too. So the thing about movies is they don't change the way you act, they change the way you think. And if you change the way someone thinks, you change the way they raise their kids.
Yep.
And then that changes the next generation, which is what shifts the society, which is why Hollywood has been so dangerous.
Oh, I bet you they said the same thing about comic book illustrators back in the day.
I know they said the same thing about writers back in the 1700s, 1800s, where it's like the youth are just spending all their time reading.
Right. So as a society, are we just getting further and further away? Or is it just maybe we're getting closer and closer to something?
What, though?
I don't know. AI taking over and then we're already seeing examples of AI taking over the creative space.
And I feel like the inherent problem with that is that the thing that humans are I wouldn't say meant to do, but the thing that we are driven to do is to create. And when you just farm that out to an AI, really the AI is not creating anything.
No.
It's just replicating someone else's creation, using that as example. So it takes everyone's creation that's on the internet and packs it together into this new thing and provides it to someone who was too lazy to do that thing on their own. Well, lazy, like I don't, not.
Call them out, Amos.
It depends on your purpose and goal. So I've been using AI to edit videos a little bit recently where there's these long corporate dragged out interviews. And it's like, hey, here's my question, ChatGPT, here's my questions list, here's the transcript. Write me a script that's 3 minutes long that answers the questions with the best takes and as engaging as possible. Don't deviate from the script because ChatGPT will deviate from the script and give you stuff they didn't say unless you give it that parameters. And then you can take that script over to your editing software and then you go through and find all your phrases, which DaVinci just came out with their next beta like this week that will actually you can import the new transcript and it will cut the video down to that transcript with all the takes, and then you can go through and select. And again, you're just trimming out a bunch of time that you would have spent.
At that point, you're utilizing a tool.
Yes.
Right. Whereas
for efficiency's purposes,
I'm talking about AI in the art sphere, right?
If you say like, I want a beautiful painting, and then you just have AI create it, it's kind of soulless.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I can spot AI pretty well. Like there's some good stuff that's hard to spot. But it's getting to the point where like with faces and things, it's really hard to tell. Not moving.
Oh.
Moving, you
haven't seen the latest.
Yeah, I have.
No. I'm saying within the past week, this guy won a AI art. I think it was a competition. I don't know whatever the case was, but he was like,
photography or art photography or moving video.
He figured out, because if you know what AI is, which I hate the fact that we call it AI, which
it's not general artificial intelligence.
I don't feel like it truly is a artificial intelligence at all. But anyway, regardless, he was utilizing. He was like, you can Mid-Journey, right? He would type in a camera format, right? I think it was Canon was the one he used as an example. Like whatever format Canon images come through, and search that, and it will actually produce a very, very photorealistic.
So this is where like photos have gotten really good. They've gotten, the hands aren't so much of a problem anymore. It's where like, yes, photos are getting really hard to tell. But I'm saying
with this adaptation and with this loophole of him figuring out, if you just add, hey, this prompt of generate it based on these parameters with this file code, right? Then it only pulls all the images off the entire internet, I guess, right?
That are publicly available for it to look at.
And so I'm thinking we're no longer months away from not being able to distinguish. We're like weeks away. That's how
you're
fast
still gonna
it's
have
going.
janky AI, but like you spend enough time, like how many photos did he replicate in order to get one that didn't?
On the first bat.
All of it.
Yeah. People are, I mean, this is within the last week.
Okay.
And like they are like photorealistic images of whatever.
Yes. So what I was saying like is not there yet is video. Video still has issues. Like every now and then, someone will get something that looks perfect, but you have to go through a lot of iterations to get that.
I would assume though, if you use that same logic and you search and you prompt it by that video type, right?
No, because what AI is still having a problem with is characters, like subjects doing actions. And especially more complex actions with camera movements and then stability across images and continuity. So like if you cut from this angle to this angle, AI is still having a really hard time making them consistent, making the continuity work between the shots. And characters will morph, but again, it's all getting better.
You know what it needs?
This is the worst it'll be right now.
It needs to be tapped into the freaking Unreal Engine.
So they did create, they replicated Doom with AI. What they did was they fed this AI model all the Doom there was. They just fed it all to it. And I don't know how much training they did. And then afterwards, they played Doom on it, but they weren't actually playing Doom. They were playing the AI's rebuilding of Doom so it was live interaction. So that might be where video gaming is going, where you have like the Unreal Engine, you have these parameters that you're working inside of, and then the characters are actually able to adaptively shift, and the story can actually change and alter on the fly and like never be the same again. Or you can basically there's no
create your own adventure book.
It'd be your own you create your own adventure live in like video games, and then at a certain point it may be movies. Like again, like I said, right now certain things with video aren't there yet, but it's only getting better.
Yeah. And
will there be any film industry when you can just punch in a prompt and say, "Hey, make me this kind of movie"? Now, like for me as someone who watches movies, I do like to know there was a person who was behind this and gave intentionality to what's on the screen.
Right.
And the other thing you can't forget is like AI can't make a movie in a vacuum. It has to watch all the million other movies that were already made in order to spit something out, which means you're just copying someone else. And they're having novelty is going to be really hard for AI because it's just derivative. And that's why so many AI images, and unless the person prompting the AI puts an immense amount of effort into their prompt to generate novelty that way, it's still not going to be novel. It's going to be derivative.
And I think that's where the skill set probably is going, is with regards to prompting.
Yeah, just being a prompter.
Just like Joe Rogan has his Jamie. He's a hell of a Googler.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's and just like my grandparents asking me how to do something, and all I do is literally just Google it for 5 minutes and
Yeah.
figure it out. And here,
Although
this
I
is how you
hear
do
this
it.
the upcoming generation has a lot of trouble with like file structures and understanding how a computer actually works. Like if an app doesn't exist, they're not quite sure what to do. Something I've heard. I haven't really looked into it deeply, but like the kids like have no idea how like a file structure works on Windows because
can
they're
see
so
that.
used to just interacting with apps on their phone or on an iPad.
I can see that. Yeah, I mean,
So just because you know how to use an iPad doesn't mean you're computer knowledgeable or skilled.
yeah, but
We grew up having to learn this stuff as it was built and created. Because like, I mean, when did you guys first get like computer internet?
computer, we probably had whatever was before Windows 95. What was that? OS?
DOS?
No, the one right before it.
I don't know.
Anyway, we probably got dial up when I was in junior high.
So we're probably about the same.
Yeah.
So we grew up with like very archaic computer systems and have seen this whole evolution. You know, we're the last generation that like grew up without computers.
Well, and I think
And I just
it's going to become a specialty trade with regards to just like if you go into the past with a cell phone, you're not going to know how to explain it, how it works. You know what I mean?
I couldn't build one.
You couldn't build one. You couldn't explain. You couldn't tell somebody instructions on how to build it.
No.
You know what I mean?
I think very few people in this world could possibly actually do that because there's so many inventions wrapped up in this phone. Like the guy who made the screen didn't make the camera.
No.
And like the camera has been built off 100 years of iteration.
Yeah.
From lenses down to, and then also like making sensors. Like there's so much, you know, from the speakers to the glass to the camera to the charging port. Everything was made by somebody else.
Okay. So to piggyback on the fact that you said that this upcoming generation potentially doesn't even know Windows files and how the back end stuff works, I think that's Apple's fault.
I would agree with you. I think Apple, they wanted everything to be a seamless experience.
You don't need to see what's in there.
Let us handle that for you.
You don't need to know what's behind there.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what's back there.
As someone who grew up on Windows, I like to be able to kind of change things. I'm not Linux. I don't want to be Linux level.
Right.
Like I want to, build this thing from the ground up. And I like to be able to swap out my memory cards or add more RAM.
Yeah, but
for a reasonable price.
See, but that's your priority because you're coming from that generation. I'm thinking in the next generation, clearly that's not going to be a priority. I can see it with my own kids. They could care less where things are coming from versus just having the app, like you said.
But it depends on what your goals are. Like I do feel like you can do more.
But it's going to become more specialized. I mean, if you're going to be able to debug certain things or whatever the case may be.
So we're going to have a bunch of people that are completely useless during the apocalypse.
Well, if it's the apocalypse, they're not going to need to know Windows.
Yeah, but they do need to know how to start a fire.
Yeah. I think it
how to, maybe get a car running.
Well, I've seen an uptick.
Gas,
I've seen an uptick on social media with regards to the trad movement.
Wife?
Yeah, the trad wife movement, that whole movement, right? And I think there's definitely a awakening, if you will. I don't think they're woke, but I think there's definitely an awakening with regards to our generation having kids and be like exactly what you're saying. Like these kids don't know how to do jack. So
there's a lot of people in our generation who don't know how to do jack either. Millennials, I think they're a bunch of softies. And I that's where I do have hope for the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, where the next generation always wants to be counterculture. They want to do the rebellious thing. And millennials tend to be so far to one side of the political spectrum and so specialized and all went to college and kind of follow the man at this point that the next generation is going to be rebellious in a good way. They're going to be like, we're not going to follow that culture. We're going to swing towards a more, conservative side. We believe in having children. We believe in, Even Gen Z and Gen Alpha are more anti-abortion than millennials are.
As a rebellious soul myself, it's hard for me to jump on that ideology. I don't.
Define rebellious soul.
Well, I don't fit. I personally don't feel like I fit into any sort of mainstream box.
So that's not. I wouldn't say it's rebellious. I'd say that's nonconformist.
Well, okay, but you're saying that the next generation, with regards to going against the grain and being rebellious, I think we need to boil it down to what is rebellion. That's the title of the episode, rebellion.
Well, rebellion would be going against something that if we're going to talk about moral rebellion, I would define it as going against an authority figure that is morally correct so that you can do something, pursue your own desires, hedonism, whatever you want to call it. It's rebellion generally is around a pursuit of pleasure. Like you're rebelling to go drink alcohol, to go smoke, to go have sex, to
rebel without a cause, man.
I never watched that movie.
Conformity versus rebellion is essentially what we're talking about.
Yeah. So like, okay, 1984, if you're, or animal, actually I like Animal Farm more. That's one of the few pieces of content that I've read multiple times is Animal Farm.
Did they make that a movie?
Yeah. But if you're the dog toward the end of the story, like you're rebelling against this system of control.
Okay.
And these certain animals are rebelling.
Okay.
Actually, I think the book does go a different direction because the good guys do not win in the book. There's no happy ending in the book. It's a pretty brutal story.
Entertainment or morality? But
anyway, my point is, if you're rebelling against a authoritarian system, that's good rebellion because that authoritarian system is in the moral wrong.
And me being in this generation, in your same generation, being of like-minded, because I feel like we're both probably on that same side of the fence. You're saying that the rest of our generation is not bucking the system?
Millennials?
Yeah.
No, they're super pro the system. They
Really?
fall in lockstep. If the political left says to do something,
maybe I need to get different friends.
I don't know. It's not a friend thing. It's more like looking at the social media and the culture and where like the trends that are being followed. But with my generation,
oh no! See, that's where I think you're wrong. Is ultimately, I think all of social media is probably
it's a dead internet theory. They're all bots.
Well, that's another rabbit hole that for sure definitely needs to be touched on. But I don't think. How do I put this?
Okay, so
I think I think in your bubble of the internet, it probably does look like that. That's interesting.
So when everyone was wearing masks,
not me,
but when everyone was wearing, when all of culture was saying to wear masks, millennials, I think by a long step, millennials and boomers and Gen Xers were all the ones who were like falling in lockstep with that, and probably the millennials the most. They were the most afraid. They're super scared of death, even though there's constant memery about suicide and kill me now and not wanting to exist in this painful system. But they're so removed from death. And I think everyone in our culture is super removed from death. Like you think about it, like if you go back 200 years, everyone at that point had probably seen someone die by the time they were 10.
Yeah. No.
The bodies everywhere.
For sure. Challenge. I think coming through that on the other side, though, however, that same pool of people are now on the other side ready to buck the system.
Which side? Which people?
The same ones that were quote unquote going. But
I think I kind of lean toward like once a generation is screwed, it's kind of screwed, and that you might have some people who escape and survive. But for the most part, like people that are in that generation are going to continue to follow that culture. Now, people do become more conservative as they age because they have more stuff. They have children. They have assets to protect and things to they actually start to believe in property rights. When you're young and you don't have anything, it's easier to not believe in property rights. So as every generation ages, it does become more conservative. But
we're
right
talking
now,
about
right now, millennials were more liberal than Gen Xers and boomers and the silent generation, greatest generation. They become success or progressively more liberal at the same age with every generation, up to millennials. And now Gen Zs and alphas are more conservative at the same age. Alphas are kind of hard to gauge yet because they're still like, that's 2014 and up. But Gen Zs, which are, I guess Gen Z is 96 to, it's not, it'd be like 96 to 2010. Alphas are like 2010 up. And so now we're getting to the end of alphas being born, and we're going to be into, I guess, betas. The next generation. But I do think that, like, yeah, the boomers and then Xers and then millennials, you're getting progressively more liberal. And then it's become counterculture to not go with what Hollywood says or the news or what culture says to do. And that is why, like, Gen Z is more anti-abortion than millennials were at the same age. More pro-marriage, pro-having children, like living a conservative life, because they're also looking at the millennials who all like went off to college like they were told to. And now they can't find jobs, and they're like living these lives with just cats and dogs and no children, and you're 35, and what are you doing with your life?
Hey, cats and dogs are cool, man.
Yeah, but if you have kids too. Not if it's like I'm just gonna have cats and dogs and have pets and treat them like my children, and that's my life, and I'm just gonna
that kind of drives me
live
crazy.
for self.
Yeah, that portion definitely drives me crazy. But I will say, I don't know. I think probably your bubble of the internet is probably a little bit more jaded towards that, whereas maybe I've curated my little corner of the internet.
I guess I don't think about the internet that way. That's the other thing too, is like I don't do bumper stickers. So like I don't like things. I don't, well, I say like, thumbs up, like, subscribe. I avoid a lot of that. I don't leave comments. I don't engage. I'm a lurker, hardcore lurker.
And yet we're asking all of you guys to like and engage.
I know. So hypocritical.
So
yeah, I'll acknowledge it. Don't engage.
But I mean, but you like the things that you like.
Yeah, of course. And there's an algorithm at play, of course.
There's an algorithm at play. I think your algorithm is jading you towards your talking points with regards to proving your truth, if you will.
I don't like that terminology at all.
I know you wouldn't.
I don't have my truth.
I know you wouldn't.
I have my opinions.
Yeah. So, and I would go to argue that my algorithm and just my personal interactions with other people as well. I would say that more people our age, because we're the same age, after COVID are definitely becoming more, I hate the term woke or awake or whatever you want to call it.
You mean it positively, like more aware of the world around them.
Yeah, we've got to come up with a better term though.
Enlightened?
Nah, that's too hippy dippy.
I mean, if you were going to be political, you'd say red pilled.
No,
but I don't like that. I don't like that term either.
Don't like that either.
No.
We'll come up with a term.
Because red pill is the Republican version of woke, or the conservative version of. I don't even like the terminology conservative or liberal, or because they don't mean what we're actually using them as, because there are. To go down a different diatribe. You have conservatives and you have liberals. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? What does a conservative mean?
Someone that is, not as, from if you boil down just the meaning of the word, I would assume it's somebody that is not like outspoken about. They're conserving, right? They're conserving the forest. I don't know.
Well, they're conserving.
They're saving.
They're conserving the status quo, where they're keeping things the way they are.
Okay. Yeah.
And what is a liberal?
The opposite.
Well, not necessarily, but a liberal is someone who questions the way things are, and like thinks outside the box and figures out new ways of doing things. Questions like, oh, should we be doing things this way? So you have conservatively minded people and you have liberally minded people. Liberally minded people tend to be creative artists or inventors, entrepreneurs. Like they think more broadly and they're not going to be hemmed in. And conservative minded people, they tend to be the backbones of society that keep the factories running because they go and do the same thing every single day.
9 to 5.
But
Monday
they
through
keep,
Friday.
I mean, the 9 to 5 thing, that's another rabbit hole. But
You get what I'm saying, though.
yes, they keep society running.
Whereas you have quote unquote named, but politically speaking, that's not.
Well, I'm getting to politics. But if you had a society of all conservatively minded people, it'd be a society with no innovation and no art and no change. I mean, we'd be cavemen. So
no movies.
No movies. And if you had a society full of liberally minded people, nothing would get done. The factories wouldn't run. We wouldn't have cars. We wouldn't have all the inventions because no one would be there to make the stuff because we're all off wanting to paint or some shit. So you need conservatively minded people and you need liberally minded people. But now that we've turned it into these political classes where you're a conservative, which means that you're like Christian, country, stay at home, isolationist, all those things. And then if you're a liberal, you're a progressive. You want to make the world a better place. You want everyone to have good lives. You want to be in the city. You want to experience the arts. It's not the right terminology to use. That's why left and right does kind of work better. But that it's in the political nomenclature that we have. So I would consider myself a liberally minded person. But I do recognize that there's a lot of underpinnings of society that have been built up over time that are very valuable. Like Christian morality is super valuable. It exists for a reason. And a good liberal will look at the system and the things that they're being told and assess whether these things are valuable and useful or not.
So is it valuable? Is it useful?
Is what valuable or useful?
I don't know. You said you're liberal minded. Are you constantly assessing?
I generally am I'm questioning myself, my own motivations, my own thought processes, like being introspective and figuring out thinking about like why I think the way I think, and then also like, is this thing useful or not? My question is, how does this make me a better Christian? If whenever someone's throwing a new idea at me or a new theological argument or a new idea about God, whatever, it's like, how does this make me a better Christian? And if it's a new thing about like life and the way of doing things, it's like, does this make me live a better life? Does this help the people around me live a better life?
Right.
Because to me, and I don't think absence of suffering is the goal, because we don't change and grow without suffering. You don't tend to make good kids if they've never suffered. But there's unneeded suffering, undue suffering that can happen. And also when you cause the innocent to suffer, that's objectively bad in a way that's like non-beneficial or useful. Like your kid going to karate class and suffering his way through karate class because it's hard, or learning an instrument, or take your pick of things that kids learn to do. Those are all beneficial in the long term because they teach you discipline and a skill. But needless suffering, if we're in some communist country and we're suffering so that the party can have its way because we're an enemy, like that's not good suffering.
And what do you say about the Christians out there that ultimately believe in when you get to heaven, He's going to take away all your suffering?
I honestly don't know what to say. I don't know what's going to happen in heaven, because I think that there's a lot that. I don't know. There are things said in the Bible about what it's going to be like in the afterlife, and I just don't know. And because as a person, as a human being, I
don't disagree with you. I definitely see the merit with regards to discipline and as it relates to suffering. I get what you're saying with regards to that. But then once again, if you're living in a new world, God has come down to earth and we're all in new bodies.
But we've already all gone through the suffering and made it through to the other side.
I would assume that there's little babies that died.
It does. Well, sure.
They didn't
Yes.
go through any suffering.
And it does say that there's going to be, a baby will live to 100 years in the new heaven and new earth, which means that I do think there's going to be more people being born and like new people coming to life. But I don't. What?
Nothing.
Where were we at? I lost my train of thought.
Deep. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Deep in it. Deep Eddie.
Oh yeah, conservative versus liberal. Like I think that, like if you take Christianity, for example, and you actually assess what it has done across time, what its rules have done, which rules have caused good and which rules have caused bad, you can, take an objective look and determine what should be kept and what shouldn't be kept. And I don't think that you can look at. Now we're going down a dasty angle.
You don't want to go that way.
That's a hard angle.
You don't want to go that way.
Because there's a lot of arguments.
Do we go into the Crusades? I mean, really? You want to go down that?
I mean, I don't know enough of the history of the Crusades, but they were certainly not utterly unmotivated.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about colonizers? Islam is a colonizing religion. It takes over areas and spreads out. That's what it does. There's a reason that all of Iberia, Spain, once belonged to the Moors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a reason why Catholicism is the most popular religion down in South America.
Yeah, well, they're both colonizing religion.
Right.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, by nature, Christianity is to proselytize. But I do think Protestantism comes from an angle that's not domineering. Most Protestants don't tend to be domineering with their religion, like Catholics or Muslims. And Judaism is not domineering either. Like they're
Not at
like
all.
don't become a Jew.
Yeah, is Judaism even
They're
proselytizing at all?
they're anti-proselytize. If you want to convert to Judaism, they will try to convince you not to be a Jew.
Yeah, I would say Buddhists aren't really proselytizing.
No, not really.
Unless you're
Or Hinduism, but they seem to be on a like this is just the way the world is, and whether you believe it or not doesn't change anything. And there's no moral code. I mean, there is a moral code to attain to, obviously, because with Hinduism you have reincarnation, and if you're a good person, you reincarnate into a better life, and if you're a bad person, you reincarnate into a fly or something, or a cow. I don't know. Again, haven't studied it that deeply.
No, you're pretty close.
And I don't know the afterlife situation with Buddhists. Is there one?
I mean, I think the object is to obtain enlightenment.
Yeah.
I don't think there's reincarnation.
But is there an afterlife?
I think all suffering is within. Is that a Buddhist term? I don't know.
Okay.
Something about suffering.
They believe the Dalai Lama that's Buddhist, right?
Yeah.
So he's reincarnated. At least he gets reincarnated.
Yeah, I think the Dalai Lama gets reincarnated.
Yeah, because he's like the Avatar.
Right. Right. Earth, wind, fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, anyway. I think that you can look at what morally Christian values have done for the West and all of the world, because the West has stemmed into all of the world. Like slavery went away because of Christianity. I firmly believe that because of the moral structure of the Christian faith, slavery eventually got degraded and taken away. And the only places that do have slavery now really they're not first world countries. They're not, I mean, it does exist. Don't get me wrong. It exists underground. And supposedly but if you go to a lot of countries in the Middle East, there's a lot of slavery.
What was that supposedly?
I mean, there's lots of crap going on behind the scenes that we don't know. That's not front and center.
Yeah.
Of course.
But I think also that goes back to the founding of our country.
But there's more slaves in the world right now than there were when slavery was abolished, before slavery was abolished in this country.
I think that's just a numbers game with regards to more people on the earth.
Sure, but they still exist. My point is they're still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like globally, there's 40 million some slaves.
Well, I mean, how many times are free men mentioned in the Bible versus slaves mentioned in the Bible?
I don't know.
Maybe we're all slaves, man.
We're all slaves to God. servants.
Interesting. No. Okay. Yes, Paul does talk about that. What do you feel about that with regards to essentially what our church and our pastor teaches about that with regards to inheritance and versus what the epistles kind of mentions about being a slave to Christ versus a son and
I
inheritance?
think it's both.
It's hand in hand?
A good son is a servant to a good father / master. Like I don't feel like there's a big difference.
Oh, you don't?
Like if you're a loyal son to your father, you're your father's servant, and if your father's a good master, then
Vice
he treats
versa.
you well. Like I don't think the two contradict each other.
No?
But I do think there's that place of like, we're servants to God, and it prevents people from being spoiled because sons can be spoiled. Servants aren't.
Yeah.
So it's easier to make a good son out of a servant than it is to make a servant out of a good son, or out of a son or a bad son.
Right.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I think you're onto something. No, I wasn't trying to trip you up or anything.
Yeah, I know. It didn't seem like a gotcha.
No, I was genuinely curious. I haven't really thought about it. I mean, because the mentions of slaves in the Bible there's quite a bit, and like you said, slavery is not gone in this world.
No, but I think, and what we define slavery as today is, I think, different to some extent than they did in the Bible. Like they could go out and take slaves of other nations, but there also was a freeing system, and there also was a clear concept through Scripture that the morals that God was giving to Abraham and then to Moses, and like in this nation that he was growing, was meant to spread to the whole world, and he would that all men be free in the same way that he would all men be saved. And slavery in the Bible was always an atonement. It was a way of dealing with sins.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the Bible, there's no prisons. There's no prisons in the law. They had prisons. They mentioned prisons later on, but in the structure that's given in the law through Moses, there's no prison structure. Like you either put people to death or
chop their hand off.
I think.
Yeah, thieves. Then they take off hands.
The only person I believe who gets to cut hand off is if a woman grabs a man by the stones in a fight. I think her hand's supposed to be cut off. I'd have to go back and look exactly about that verse, but that's the only one that I can recall where someone gets their hand cut off in the law, which that's kind of weird. It's like, that's like, you look at that law and you're like, what's going on there? You think a woman grabbing a man by the nuts is really enough to get her hand cut off?
Some guys.
How hard was she squeezing?
Some guys like it. I don't know.
I know some people are into that.
I would definitely say,
but to finish, I'm doing interrupt, but to finish that point, I do believe that going up from Moses through Jesus, like the idea was always that there'd be freedom. Right. And the only reason that you did have slavery amongst brethren in the law was to deal with theft and sin, where someone couldn't pay something back. So there had to be an atonement to pay back what you owed someone. You couldn't send them to prison. So there was like 7 years of servitude because you didn't pay back your debt.
And in a way, the prison system is a form of slavery.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. And also, I think that it's cruel because there's no timeouts in the Bible. You don't give people timeouts. You punish them swiftly, or you force them to pay back. And like, yeah, you could sell your kids into slavery. You could do that stuff. But then like, if you're in a man who's in a position where you need to sell your kids into slavery, you're not a good man. You're a man who's either fallen on very hard times, but likely have not made wise choices across your family. And then you get into generational curses and all sorts of, it's a complicated system. But if you have good men living in a good society, then even if you have that slavery system at play, it's always going to redound to the benefit of everyone involved.
Well, doesn't it reset after 7 years anyway?
Yes, it depends on the situation, but yeah. And a slave can choose to stay. And then you take him to the doorpost and you put the awl through his ear and all that fun process. It's where earrings are like, they're a sign of slavery in the Bible.
My has time changed?
Yes. But I mean, in those regards, possibly for the better. But I don't think it's good to like send people to jail for 7 years for having some marijuana. I think that's a terrible way of doing things.
Yeah, there's definitely a handful of wrongfully convicted. I would definitely. Is that a liberal or a conservative point of view?
Which one?
The fact that there's injustice with regards to,
well, that would be liberal because you're not
system.
wanting to. You're thinking about the system in a different way, and you think that it's not structured properly, and you don't want to conserve it.
Yep.
And there's the other thing is like there's so much lobbying involved, and there's so much corruption involved in keeping things the way they are. So when you think you're conserving something that's good, like the prison system, which is there's a lot of private prisons out there who lobby to keep marijuana laws on the books so they can keep the government paying them money to keep people in jail.
Yeah.
And then prison guard unions who are like fighting for the same things because, again, they want to keep their jobs, which their job is keeping people pinned up. When I don't know what the percentage is, but like it's a plurality or a majority of people in prison who really shouldn't be there by any biblical standard.
Yeah.
But like I said, by biblical standards, there are no prisons. Not like there are prisons later. Like they talk about the debtor's prison and stuff like that in the New Testament, but in the Mosaic Law,
right,
there's no prisons. There are indentured servitude. There's servitude or death.
Because you're talking about that came out of,
or you pay if you have the means to pay back.
Out of Rome, huh?
Yeah, they were under Roman rule.
Yeah,
at the time. And the thing is, they hadn't been under any kind of Mosaic law, like if you even want to say they were following it. But since Babylon, like they couldn't do things their own way in the northern tribes with Judah, and before that, Assyria. With the southern tribes, Judah, Benjamin, the northern tribes, the other 10 tribes, they got hauled off by Assyria and haven't been seen since, except for they mentioned a little bit in Acts with Pentecost. It says that all the tribes had representatives there. Anyway, how far down this rabbit hole do you want to
go? Right now,
since you're in charge.
Well, I believe right now, as we speak, there is legislation going through the Texas House that will ban even further hemp-derived THC.
Yeah, they're pulling all the THC stuff.
Yeah, which I find is very interesting because
I would like to know that, like, what damages are they perceiving that have been caused by having it on the books for 2 or 3 years now? It's been 2 or 3 years.
Well, it's not even that it's on the books; is that it was federally. Hemp came back, and then they're using this loophole with regards to the hemp.
So Texas never passed anything. It just federally became available or lawful, legal, decriminalized, whatever you want to call it. And Texas is trying to lock that off in this state.
Right, to tighten it even further. So it's like...
Yeah, but what 0.03% Delta 9 THC, like how much trouble is that causing in our society? Now, you can make an argument about mind-altering substances. Like, I think there's good arguments both directions to whether they're moral or not. And again, it's a tool. It's how you use it. And I put everything in, like alcohol to heroin are all in that category. Alcohol is the most damaging drug of all time. But
it's are they saying that it's going unregulated? Because everything that I've seen that's in stores or whatever the case may be,
it could maybe it's a safety standard thing. I feel like it's conservative, older. Let's use the word codgers. I don't know, but you get the vibe I'm going for. Who just like, we don't want to allow that.
Yeah,
that's the vibe that I got. I haven't looked into it deeply. It just seems odd. Like I mean, you don't really get much from it. You get a little buzz. I don't enjoy it. Like, I think I've had 1 or 2. I can't say I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can't say one way or the other.
But again, we grew up without partaking of any of that stuff. So
yeah, I just find it so interesting that it's...
I don't like the idea of synthetic stuff. Like, personally, for my own consumption, like, I don't want like synthetically derived.
Well, I would definitely
mind-altering substances.
I would definitely fall under the side of less like government intervention.
That's what I think. I think that
like,
as long as you're not harming someone else. Now, you do have problems like, say, take China, opium wars. Like I believe it was the West. I think it was the West. Got all the Chinese men hooked on opium, and they had a massive working shortage and crisis because everyone was just getting high in these opium dens, and it did a lot of damage to China in the 1800s. So if you have a substance that is so powerful that it seduces the masses and makes them want to do nothing but linger in a chair and be useless to society, should that thing be not allowed? I mean, we're leading toward like VR headsets right now. If you had a headset that you could put on and just live in bliss for the next 20 years while your body lingered and wasted away and you produced nothing, like, should we as a society allow that to happen? Because that's where I come to like a crossroads with the morality of like freedom, like pure individualistic, atomistic freedom, where you can just do whatever you want to as long as you don't harm someone else.
Right.
I don't think that's Christian. It's not Christian because we're called by Christ to do better and make the world a better place. And living in your own pleasures is not making the world a better place. But as a, so I guess use the word libertarian. I don't consider myself a libertarian, but to follow the libertarian. That's not the word. That's liberalistic. Yeah, we'll just go with that. Libertarian mindset of let people do whatever they want to do as long as they don't harm anybody else. I think not having that mindset leads to harm as well, where let's just clamp down and make everyone follow this set of rules. And you lead to 1984 or communist China. And this is where like people need to be righteous. Like a righteous law can only govern a righteous people. If you have a bunch of unrighteous people living under a law that is righteous, they're just going to change it. It's going to have to be changed in order to adapt to deal with those bad people. And this is where like it all starts in the home. It all starts with how you raise your kids. Mm-hmm. That's the foundation of society. And if you raise your kids to be ungrateful little shits.
How about if you just raise them at all, Amos? I don't think a lot of parents are even raising their kids at all.
One of the school system's raising their kids, and
which is very sad.
And the same also goes to the church too. Like I know my father-in-law, his dad said that like, well, I thought the church was going to teach you guys morality and raise you. And, so they went to Catholic school and they were, hardcore Catholics. Mm-hmm. And like, I thought that was going to
be enough.
That was going to be enough.
Yeah.
No, when you farm out the raising of your children to other people, one, it's not good for the kids. The kids don't see the parents as the authority structure in their life. And then two, it's not good for the parents because the parents are just
I think it's just either what it boils down to is being proactive or raising your kids at all. Mm-hmm. Like whether it be good or bad, morality out the window.
You're saying like proactive and reactive versus just absence.
Yeah. I mean, that right there is prevalent across our world is the fact that parents just aren't even like talking to their kids about their day, talking to their kids about, how was school? Oh, get 2 seconds and then they're back into their own little world.
Well, everyone's staring at a screen.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of this too. We're all like, I know I and my wife and
by no means,
we're certainly guilty of this.
Yeah.
Addiction. This is the modern addiction.
I'm not saying I'm ready to come out with my parenting book. That'll be definitely in 10 years or so.
Parenting with Ben.
But I'm saying there's definitely something to be said about just actively parenting versus man, I don't know. There's just really too many examples of, I guess, just people not taking an active role in their own lives, right? And they're not taking an active role in their kids' lives, and probably just living paycheck to paycheck, just barely.
Well, they're under their own pressures, and like you look at the way they were raised, and that's the other thing is like everyone's living life for the first time.
What?
Yeah. I mean, unless you believe in reincarnation, but even then, those people don't remember. So you got to reset. But yeah, you got to look at where they came from. But also, if you as an individual can recognize where you're at, it is then your responsibility to adapt and change for the better. So you can only blame your parents so much for how you came up.
Yep.
Even though they are going to answer to God in their own right.
Even though your therapist tells you day after day. What do you think about therapy?
I think it can be useful to like talk through things. Like talk therapy, definitely. You have to. It's not changing what you think or know. It's changing what you believe. And if talking with someone can change that, now, what's paying someone $100 an hour to do that? Like, I guess if that's how you want to get by. Like, I've never done that. Like, but I would rather find like a strong group of guys and talk with them and get personal counseling and opinions. I think mentorship is probably ultimately more valuable than therapy because it comes with other benefits.
Well, I think it's just a matter of constantly changing your perspective and not being rigid or numb.
What is like therapy? What do you mean?
No. Yeah, I'm saying with regards to either pursuing therapy or not pursuing therapy, if a person recognizes they need a change,
you're recognizing that you're not your best self.
Right. Yeah. Looking inward to say, oh, I need either divine intervention or, but human interaction to change a thought pattern, to change habits, to.
But you recognize that you don't have the tool set in order to alter these things in your life. And so you need to go get them from somewhere. And yes, like you say, it can happen divinely, but it can also happen just like talking through things and figuring out. And that's where, like, therapists, they have spent a lot of time studying psychology and how the mind works. And that they've got a lot of experience with people who've had similar problems to whatever you're going through. Yeah, their knowledge can be beneficial and useful.
Yeah. This episode brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com.
Yeah, I don't know about
CTAS.
I don't know about those things. Like, how is that just a big marketing thing?
No, it works.
BetterHelp. It works. Yeah, confidently endorsed by Ben. It works.
It works.
It works. Have you tried it personally? Is this
yeah?
You want to talk about personal endorsement of BetterHelp?
Well, they have like a sidestep. BetterHelp is more one-on-one, whereas like I think they have a marriage counseling that's something similar to it. A couple sessions, and I was like, all right, cool.
So did it like the remoteness, the ability to just.
I think it's just, once again, recognizing a different perspective is needed on a certain particular situation.
Yeah.
And we could have easily probably gotten that perspective shift from another outside party versus paying somebody that we don't even know.
But sometimes someone you don't even know is better because they're completely removed from the situation.
Well, and I think there's definitely
and there's also no social aspect.
Well, there's benefits. There's benefits to spilling the beans on whatever the situation may be to a no-name figure
who you're not going to see at church next Sunday.
Yeah, and not air your dirty laundry.
Yeah, I get it.
So once again, it wasn't like a reoccurring, month to month.
Ben,
we've been in therapy for 3 years.
Ben doesn't have deep emotional struggles that I need to talk to my therapist.
But it was definitely to a point where, okay, so I don't really trust. I wouldn't say I don't trust, but both of us kind of came to the realization where it's like, okay, we need an outside objective opinion, because clearly where you're getting your perspective and where I'm getting my perspective, we just can't agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's definitely, people that go into therapy, social couples therapy, probably with ulterior motives, to use it as a means to, probably a means to an end. I hate to say it.
You mean like to win the argument?
Not necessarily. Yeah. No, I'm saying like a means to end the relationship.
I got you.
Like to say, well,
Can't do it. That person agreed.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
You can't work this out.
And so going into any sort of therapy, especially with couples therapy, I wouldn't recommend that for couples that can't even agree to go to therapy, right? But I think if you're mature enough and of sound mind enough to be like, hey, this is one thing we just can't get over, right? Yeah, I think BetterHelp.com/CTAS.
Ben's looking for sponsors.
Just saying.
I wouldn't mind. That'd be cool. Sponsors.
Let's talk about the show and sponsorships. One thing that I would love to reach out, maybe if we could clip this and get it out to, I've brought it up before. Have you ever heard of Common Sense Media?
No.
Okay. Common Sense Media is a website. I think they do have an app too. And I find it very useful as a parent of were once young children and now teenagers.
Like they do.
And essentially it's curated movie and show reviews.
Okay.
And essentially you type in whatever show, whatever movie, and it gives you a breakdown of what their experts, their common sense people say, what their recommendations, what the parents say, and what also the kids say, right? I think it's a definitely a level approach to, especially in this modern age where you really have no idea where media is coming from, what influences.
And if you're letting the screen raise your kid.
Yeah. So they break it down with key factors such as sexuality, violence, profanity.
It's a rating,
smoking, drinking.
A detailed rating system for more discerning parents.
Yep.
Who don't have the time to pre-screen everything their kids watch.
Yeah, because we started using it because as the kids were growing up, we found ourselves wanting to expose them to more media that we grew up with. And before, doing that, I remember watching Gladiator as a child or whatever, as a young adult, maybe. I don't know how old I was when I watched Gladiator. But anyway.
I watched Braveheart when I was 8.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty gruesome. I think.
My parents were not involved in that.
I think there's some nudity, frontal nudity in that.
Yeah, there is some.
Yeah.
But it was a wedding scene, so I guess that.
Oh, okay.
And then it ended poorly after that,
Yeah, and so with such a wide variety of media.
What do you think's more damaging?
What?
Seeing some full-fronted nudity or seeing a woman get her throat cut open in an execution scene? What do you think is more damaging to an 8-year-old?
Violence versus.
Because I certainly remember one more vividly than the other.
Was it? We're boiling it down to, because it wasn't necessarily sexuality nudity, it's just nudity versus violence.
Well, I'm just that specific movie's nudity and that specific movie's violence.
I've probably only watched it like twice. I need to go back and watch.
It's like a wedding scene. Like they get married. He takes her top off. They kiss. They embrace. That's as much as I remember.
And then a bunch of killing.
A lot of killing, but Braveheart's not very historical, but in the context of the movie. Right. I believe the Englishmen were allowed to sleep with the wives of the Scotsmen who got married. And so they got married in secret. And one of the English guards figured that out, then raped her. And then she attacked him. So he tied her up and cut her throat. Very well displayed on the TV. And it was like, I still remember that.
I think,
and then a lot of people got chopped up in battles, and it was, yeah. But anyways.
I think I remember reading about that when I went to go look up Braveheart to potentially show my teenagers, and I was like, yeah, that's probably something that was just a little bit across the line that I was like, nah.
Yeah. And then the last time we watched it was after I got married, and Katie was like, well, that was boring.
Oh, she thought it was boring?
When is that movie going to end? It's 3.5 hours.
That's a long movie.
Like, freedom.
I think it's different for not to sound sexist, but I think it's definitely different for women and men.
Okay, how so?
I would almost say that the violence would be more detrimental to a young woman versus the nudity and the sexual implications.
Well, I mean, in Hollywood, the nudity is generally female nudity, so that's not likely to have a big effect on a girl, unless it
Right.
awakens
Maybe.
something in her for the other side, which would be detrimental in my opinion to some extent. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, with boys, it's like all violence and gore, and you wanna go be a warrior.
For some reason, as a society, the violence.
Well, as Christians, we were always okay with violence. Like, okay, growing up in my house, sex was the big no-no.
Right.
Which I get the reasoning why, because that actually, if you see violence on the TV screen, doesn't mean that you're likely to go out and murder someone. Whereas if you see sex and nudity, you're more likely to get like intrigued and enticed to go pursue that further. Sexual immorality. So I get the angle. I get it.
Well, because of the degree of that sin is not.
The sin of murder, in my opinion, I do believe that there's a sliding scale for sin. There's some sins are worse than others, because then the penalties wouldn't be the same.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying
But when you see sexual immorality or like things that can awaken sexual immorality, it's more likely to cause you to go pursue that thing than seeing violence. Like violence in video games and movies, I don't think is likely to turn you into a violent person. Whereas sex and nudity in movies does have a higher chance to turn you into a sex addict or something like that.
Huh.
Or someone who acts in sexually immoral ways.
Then again, though, as Christians, as a Christian society, if you want to say that we're in a Christian society for the most part, our little bubbles, we're okay with war.
Are we?
I'm not, but
Like you have to define those parameters, because war for good cause, yes. War for bad cause, which is most all modern wars, no.
I would say for war at all costs.
Well, what about in the Bible? The war in the Bible?
There's definitely violence in the Bible, but there's also
full-on wars. I mean, when Joshua went into Israel, it was with the plan to conquer everybody there and take the land.
Yeah, but he was rooting out.
That's my point.
He's rooting out.
Their cup was full.
Nephilim.
Well, yeah, but they weren't all Nephilim. All the Canaanites, you're saying they're just all tainted blood?
Sure.
So then it's just genocide. Genocide's okay, war bad.
Genocide okay, war bad. No, I'm not saying. I'm saying definitely if God tells you to go wipe out a whole nation, you better do it.
Okay.
Because there's probably a reason.
There's probably a reason.
They're going to come back.
Yeah. But that's war, though.
I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing.
And so, like, okay, let's just take the World War II from the historical standpoint. What
was that? Okay, boil it even further back. You got if we're going to stay within the realm of not going pre-Adamic humans in the first sin, right? We've got Adam and Eve sinning in the garden. They get kicked out of the garden. Then what is the second mentioned sin?
Are you going to Cain and Abel, murder? Okay.
Right.
So disobedience and then murder.
So, I mean, when does the Bible even address sexual immorality with regards to, you follow me?
Like the first sexually immoral sin?
Yeah. We talking about
if you're going to draw, well, okay, yeah, the Nephilim. They went to the sons of God went to the daughters of men, but that wasn't the problem. There wasn't the act of sex. The problem there was breeding.
I wasn't even going there. I was going with the angels that went to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, I think the first one that you can pin down, if you're going to use conjecture, would be Noah and Ham. That situation. So what I think happened there was throughout the law, when it says that you uncover someone's nakedness, it means you have sex with them. And if you uncover your father's nakedness, you have sex with your mother. That's in the Mosaic law. So I think that when Canaan uncovered Noah's nakedness, Ham uncovered Noah's nakedness, he slept with his mother, and what came from that was Canaan. Yeah. Which is why Canaan was the only one who was cursed, because he would have been a product of incest. Now, that's conjecture. Like, I can't point to the Bible and prove that.
Right.
But that's what I do believe. And that's why Canaan was such a problem and thorn in the side throughout Israel's history. And then also, if you look at, so there's three groups of people that the Israelites were forbidden to marry into: Canaanites, Ammonites, and Moabites. Mm-hmm. You know the thing about the Ammonites and Moabites?
Tell me.
They came from Lot's. Okay. When his daughters. So when they left Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's wife got turned into a pillar of salt, and they went to Zor, and then they went up and hid in the fifth city that didn't get burned down. And then they went up and hid in a cave, and the daughters were like, "This is the last of men. World's over." They convinced their father they got him drunk, slept with him, and then they both had children from him. That's Ammon and Moab. Mm-hmm. Now in Deuteronomy, Joshua, wherever, when it says that you're forbidden to marry into the Ammonites and Moabites, it does say because they like attacked you in the way, they came up behind you, they didn't allow you to pass from that exact situation. But it is interesting that they are products of incest as well.
Right.
God didn't like incest.
No, he did not.
And so,
so there had to have been other humans.
I lean toward a dual creation where he created man and woman, and then he created Adam and Eve.
Genesis
Sorry to blow anyone's minds, but I think
Genesis 1,
then
Genesis 2.
2 and 3. I think it's 2 and 3.
Oh, Genesis 1 at the end.
Is it?
He wraps up. He wraps up, and then 2.
Yeah. That's what I lean toward. Again, conjecture. Yeah. And that's why, like, when it comes to Abraham being married to his sister Sarah, I don't think that I think he was just straight up lying.
It's been interesting going back, and so I've been watching the House of David.
Okay.
Which we've previously talked about it. You're not as sold on it.
It didn't hook me.
Didn't hook you, but I also.
But I only gave it 10 minutes.
I think
I did not give it justice.
I think anything that points somebody back to the Word to investigate on their own to find the validity is probably a net positive.
So
in this world.
That's the Simon the Sorcerer argument, where the apostles came to him and they said, "This guy's preaching things in your name," and they were trying to shut him down, and Jesus rebuked him and said, "Hey, he's preaching my name, like, leave him be," even though he's wrong about a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where I would agree.
So I've been going back and reading through, and just, man, there's just so much exciting content there in the Old Testament with regards to David, and I'm curious to see where they're going to take it with regards to the TV.
Are they going to do it justice? I want that scene where David walks in with the foreskins of 200 Philistines.
Yeah.
Or was it 50 to 100? He brought back double.
I thought it was 100.
He brought back double what was asked for.
And then Saul still gave him a second.
My question is, did he kill those Philistines first? That's what I want to know.
And do you tie him up on a rope?
How do you? And that's the other thing.
You put him in a bag.
Going back to the nudity thing, there is so much nudity in the Bible. There was so much nudity back then, male nudity back then. Like, Peter was fishing naked. They did somewhere along the way with Protestantism. We got this very, like, a lot of taboos got built up that aren't really present in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I get as a, thinking liberally versus conservative, if you actually dig into why those things came about, there was legitimate reason for it coming about. Like, it was the 1800s, 1700s. It was a pretty busty time. Like, all the trend was showing lots of cleavage.
Right.
It came from somewhere. just like prohibition, like there was an era in this country, like also, talking about the opium wars and everything. There was an era in this country before prohibition where everyone was just getting drunk. All the men were just drunk because distillation had become so widespread. With technology, they were able to distill alcohol easily, and everyone was just getting wasted. There's a reason they wanted to ban alcohol. And yeah, there was exploitation that happened, and other people got in there, were like, okay, we want to be part of this because it helps us from a business or from a greed standpoint. But there still was a baseline reason why that caught fire.
I definitely don't think we're better off now, even though we're out of prohibition.
How do you mean?
Well, alcohol sales.
We're not out of prohibition. They just decriminalized it. They didn't take it's weird how they used that to regulate. You didn't have the ATF before.
Right.
Yeah. Alcohol is a highly regulated substance.
Highly.
Yes.
Violence or nudity. Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting take, because you're exactly right. There's plenty of nudity across the Bible.
But it's not shown to us. We're not seeing it in picture.
As well as
just reading it.
Sexual immorality,
the other thing, too, is the nudity in the Bible isn't erotic. It's not pornographic in nature.
No, but there is sexual immorality. Like, you're talking about King David. This is where I was going with this, with regards to David, right? The house of David. And then David having, Samuel picking him out of all of Jesse's kids and saying, God doesn't look on the outside, he looks on the end, right? He having the heart that God wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be the king. And then for David to have so many different wives, and then the whole thing with Bathsheba.
Yeah. Which was the only matter that God ever held against David, was the matter of Uriah the Hittite.
Yeah. So it's just, but once again, was perfectly fine with him going out and killing 10 Philistines.
Well, the Philistines,
100 Philistines in their foreskins
who worshipped Dagon. Like, they were part of the heathen that was supposed to be taken out. Well, the Philistines were a little bit of a gray area because they weren't Canaanites.
So was the issue with Bathsheba the fact that he lusted after another man's wife?
He slept with another man's wife.
And
then impregnated her,
and then had him go to the front line and get killed?
Yes.
Right.
All of the above.
Once again, violence and nudity wrapped into one.
But it wasn't, like I said, it's not displayed as erotic. It's not like an erotic novel.
No.
It's not written to tantalize.
No.
And like all of David's wives,
it's written as a warning.
All of David's wives weren't in the category of sin, though. Like, that wasn't like.
No. I'm agreeing with you. No,
it was just the matter of Uriah the Hittite and the counting of the people, and then because that was the second matter, but it doesn't say God held it against them.
Yeah.
But that's where the pestilence came on the land and whatever that was. And then David paid for the matter with Uriah the Hittite. Like, when Nathan came to him and he's like, what needs to happen to this person? He gave him the parable of the guy who he had plenty of his own sheep. Mm-hmm. And he went over and took that one guy, the guy who had one sheep, and he killed him, took a sheep. And David got all mad. He's like, well, that guy should be, what do you say, payback fourfold or something? I think he said to kill him. But it turned out that Nathan said the judgment against David was going to be that he would lose, that 4 of his sheep would be taken, and he lost 3 sons and a cousin, I believe. I have to look back and see who the 4th was.
So what do you think
of
violence versus nudity?
It's a gray area for me, because I think that if nudity is done in a way to be erotic, then you're just tantalizing men to pursue things that ultimately don't lead to good. And violence is oftentimes, I don't enjoy torture porn at all. I've never enjoyed movies, even like Saw. Take Saw. I've watched a little bit of Saw. I kind of enjoyed them, but I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed what was happening, but it wasn't.
There's a story.
There was probably.
There definitely is an underlying through line within 6 Saw movies, or however many they came through.
At 3.
Yeah,
I think there's been 10. Yeah, okay, there was a point in my early or late teens where it's like, this is fun to watch gore and people getting.
Oh.
But I like stuff like Hostel. I never wanted to. I never like that. Just
would
was
that be
off-turn-
rebellious?
off-putting.
Would your father say that was rebellious for you to watch that?
I mean, again, going back to what is rebellion? Like viewing a movie, I kind of have a hard time
just
placing that as rebellion.
Just being cheeky.
But at least where I'm at right now, I don't enjoy torture porn. I don't mind violence. I don't mind watching.
Quit saying it like that.
What? Torture porn? That's what it is.
No, bro. No. That I hate when people like, okay. No, it doesn't need to fall into the
Well, it's being centralized. It's being consumed for the sake of itself.
And I get well, I guess if you're trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve when saying torture porn, you're definitely achieving it.
What?
But it's like, yeah, okay.
I think it very adequately describes what it is.
We're going to edit this whole thing out.
Well, yeah, I guess you just don't want that word in there because YouTube doesn't like that word.
No, yeah, that too. But at the same time, like, okay, so hot take, right? There's a genre of worship music out there called soaking in his presence. Soaking in his presence or whatever. Soaking worship.
That
worship.
Sounds fetishistic, but okay.
And I get where it's coming from. It's like you're bathing in the, I don't know. That to me ekes me out. It sounds
sensual and well, let's think about that. To dig in, because like I'm someone who's somewhat removed from is not the right word, but like my perspective on worship doesn't tend to be an emotional one. I'm not an emotionally worshipful person. Which is why like music doesn't do a lot for me from a worship standpoint.
All right, we're going off the rails. So, violence.
Where were the rails? Did I not answer the question?
Were we going with tasteful nudity to not tantalize?
I think nudity that's done in a way. If you were to do nudity in a biblical fashion, like if you were doing I think there are some stories that you can't, in the Bible, you can't do them right without nudity. Without just feeling like you're censoring the story.
Or appeasing society.
Yeah. There's certain things where it's like, yeah, it's kind of important. Okay, take the Tamar, Amnon, David's children, who, let's not say the bad word that YouTube doesn't like. If you were to do that, if you were to make a movie that contained that story in it, and you weren't to do that scene correctly, in a way that it was traumatizing and violating to the audience, then you have a hard time fully justifying Absalom's anger and rage and the angle that he was coming from without displaying the other. Does that make sense?
Yep. Oh, no. It makes sense.
I think if you're gonna put, again, the point of a movie is to put someone in another person's emotional state, or through another person's experiences. If you have to go there, you have to go there. And so, but I don't feel like anyone's getting off on that. If they are getting off on that scene, they're probably a bad person.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
but I think as a society we would definitely. Because, okay, so back to the House of David. It is quite gory. Like there's a lot of violence in it. And
but that's tame.
Yes, I know. I've seen Braveheart too. I get it. Is there Braveheart 2? I've seen Braveheart also.
I've seen Braveheart 1. Braveheart, the reawakening.
But you get what I'm saying though, is that I don't know if you could make that show 20 years ago.
No, of course not. But you could make Braveheart 20 years ago. Sorry, no, you could make Braveheart and The Patriot. You could make The Patriot 20 years ago. That's what I was going to go for.
Braveheart was made 20 years ago.
30 years ago.
30 years ago.
Braveheart would have been made 25 years ago. Sorry. The Patriot would have been made 25 years ago. But we've been accepting of war, like bloody war stories for a long time. And I even think The House of David, like it still doesn't, creatively violent's the wrong way to put it. But like The Patriot It's a very gory movie. And
Mhm.
all the gore, I feel, is highly justified in the story because it's showing you how bad war is.
Yeah, but you believe the
I believe
history.
the conspiracy, the Revolutionary War conspiracy history.
Yeah.
That's another podcast.
That's another
That's
episode.
another podcast.
That's another episode.
I think that I think it comes down to what your objectives and goals are in presenting either. If it's gore and violence for the sake of gore and violence, I think it's misused. And if it's nudity for the sake of nudity, it's being misused because it should all be about telling the story properly. But I will say that rarely is nudity going to be needed to tell the story properly.
Well,
And much more often, violence will be needed to tell the story properly.
definitely not in polite society.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I'm saying that in our current societal paradigm that we live in, that is where we're at. Violence, okay. Nudity, no.
As Christians,
As Christians and
have you seen Game of Thrones?
well, no,
Have you seen any HBO show?
I definitely track where you're going with that.
Like they don't make those shows without nudity for a reason because it sells.
Right. But I'm saying in our current paradigm as Christians, whereas, yeah, definitely from that Puritan era, we still drudge along a lot of false guilt.
I think it's more like just taboos and false premises about what God actually cares about.
Right. What does God really care about? The heart.
Well, he cares that we love God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and our neighbors ourselves, that we do good to one another and not harm. I mean, when Jesus, when the rich young ruler asked Jesus, "What must I do for eternal life?" he listed off the last 6 commandments, which were dealing with man. It's like, be good to each other.
Yeah.
But like, that's also like, well, you have to understand within the the moral structures of the Bible what that actually means, because a suicidal guy might think that you're doing good to him by offing him, and that's not accurate, or like it's not biblical.
No.
So, yeah. But yeah, what God wants is for us to be good to each other and not take what isn't ours. Like if you look at the commandments, a lot of them can be broken down to either theft or blasphemy or disgracing, like something that's holy. But all the ones that dealing with man, like murder is theft of life, adultery is theft of wife and heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Theft is, thou shalt not steal, is theft straight up. Bearing false witness is you're stealing, you're bearing false witness in order to take something from someone else because it is a courtroom setting. So you're giving them penalties that they don't deserve, which is taking life or time or goods. And covetousness is all about wanting to take something that isn't yours.
Yep.
So just don't take things that aren't yours. That's what it boils down to.
It's a very libertarian mindset.
Is it? I think it's a mix of both.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
Well, we can dig into it further if you want.
No. I think that's plenty.
That's been quite enough.
Well, Amos, I appreciate you coming down. This has been
thanks for having me.
This has been a treat.
What'd you think, Ben?
Amos, you make a pretty good guest.
That's debatable.
No, I think sitting, I definitely have more empathy for you sitting in your chair.
Wait, it's because you're in the other chair.
Yeah.
Not because I revealed my soul to you and now I have more empathy for you.
No. Yeah. I think I'm definitely more of a gotcha journalist. If I were going to...
Gonzo, you're like...
Oh, yeah.
You're more of a Lost and Loathing in Las Vegas kind of.
One of my favorite movies.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not make it all the way through. I'm like, I think we got to the acid trip and the lizard people, and I'm like, I can't. And then prior to that, I know that I've seen from like Tobey Maguire on to the end of the movie on other viewings. So whatever is in between there is missing.
Yeah, that's one of those movies in the drug culture that I definitely got into at a young age, in my rebellious stages.
We should have added we had nudity, violence. We should have added drugs to that. We should add all the vices, and we should do a vice. Which vice is worst podcast?
Yeah, we should do a Vice podcast. But yeah, no. I think, like I said, I have a lot of empathy with regards to hosting, and just sitting back and letting the guest bare their soul.
I liked being on. I like the normal chair that I'm in because then I get to talk less.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Huh?
Like as long as you ask the right question, and then they can talk for 15 minutes.
Right.
And if I can resist the urge to not interrupt them, which I'm not super successful at.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a heck of a time editing this one because it's just you and me.
Editing?
Yeah.
Wait, this outro or the episode?
The whole thing.
I think I might just put a explicit stamp on the front of it and call it a day.
Just let it roll.
Let the cards fall where they are. Can just as long as your 10-year-old child's not listening. I don't know. Maybe you're fine with that. I don't think I would object to mine listening to anything on here.
No. We didn't. I don't think we touched anything that was too crazy. And this is only for our own hubris that we're even sitting down and doing this outro.
I know. I was picturing us being a bit more haughty and like, that was the best episode ever. Like, man, I had so many good points.
Yeah.
I really thought that I nailed every argument.
Yeah.
That's where I thought we were going to go with this outro, but now we're just being too honest.
Right. I think if anything, this is the heart of every single episode. At the end where we just kind of like we're tired. We're like, what do we really think?
Half the times I don't even grade these.
Yeah. So.
But yeah.
No, I
enjoyed you on the other side too. I thought you kept me going. You're like, ooh, let's dig into that. Let's find out what you mean by that.
Well, Amos, I've found that we complement each other with regards to kind of prodding each other on. And we challenge each other, which I think you need that. What does the scripture say about iron sharpening iron?
No. I mean, it's not a challenge if something's not getting filed off.
Exactly. And I hope the audience enjoys it too, because really at this point, we would love to get more guests in here. We're going to have more guests in here. Mm-hmm. But some days we're just going to sit down and it's just going to be you and me.
I think we should do this at least every 20 episodes, if not 15 or something like that. I think it's good to sit down and just get behind the mindset of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now you're supposed to ask me where we can be found.
So, Amos, where can we be found?
We can be found on YouTube and podcasts and wherever you can. Now let's start that over. We can be found on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. Spotify has video now. You can get it on Apple, iHeartRadio, really wherever you look. Get in the comments, like, share, subscribe. Just pump those numbers up. Get that algorithm flowing for us. It really helps. And yeah, let's talk about some more shit.
Bye.